Second.
We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. All right.
All right, item G1B regarding bid 22-005 asphalt emulsions for delivery and pickup.
Not what's the pleasure of the court?
Move to approve the recommendation of the purchasing director.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. I'd like to go to item L1. We have Shane Turner and Fiona Bond here. This is regarding the U.S. Department of Treasury Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund American Rescue Plan Act discussion or action regarding the eligible expenses and our funding guidelines, reporting requirements, and funding request.
So I'm Fiona Bond, Executive Director of Creative Waco, and of course this is Shane Turner, owner and operator of the Hippodrome.
All right, so we will recess until 1 o'clock tomorrow. So it's 11. All right, good morning. Let's call court to order. That is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. It's 9 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Friday, February 25th, 2022 at 3:10 p.m.
Thank you. And if anyone has a public comment, they can come forward now from the audience. Yes, sir.
My name is Shannon Caraway. I'm Vice President for Business Development for a company called Solar Prime. Currently, we're trying to develop another 300 megawatt solar farm and 300 megawatt battery energy storage project here in McLennan County. And it's out north of Trading House Creek Reservoir, that area there. We're preparing to submit a proposal to this body soon for a county tax abatement for the project, and just wanted to stop by ahead of time, introduce ourselves, and tell you what we're doing.
Going to D on proclamations, resolutions. We have nothing this week. Under E, under consent agenda, I have no recommended pulls. Does anyone else have a pull from the consent agenda they want to discuss? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right, Dustin.
Yes, sir. Judge, if we could go to item N1, this is discussion and or action on matters regarding COVID-19.
These case numbers have decreased for the hospitals.
All right, Judge, do you want to accept that for recording purposes?
Yes. Is there a motion to accept that report for recording purposes?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
All right, if we could go to item N10, presentation from Texas State Technical College regarding Central Texas Industrial Training Center.
There's a mismatch between the number of jobs that are available and the number of people that are available to fill those positions.
Move to accept for recording.
February 2022.
Know that we have had one project announcement for this first quarter, and that was in McGregor with Messer.
All right, if there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the chamber report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, we can go back up to item F, budget amendments. F1's regarding the FY22 budget. Francis?
FY22 budget amendments, starting with F1A.
Is there a motion to approve F1D through F1I?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Under item G, bids, RFPs, RFQs, G1 is authorization of recommendations. G1A regarding bid 22-004, aggregate surface treatment for delivery and pickup.
All right, what's the pleasure on items G1A?
Motion to approve the purchasing director's recommendations on the bids.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, pass. All right.
All right, item G1B regarding bid 22-005, asphalt emulsions for delivery and pickup.
Not what's the pleasure?
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Okay, let's call court back into session. It's 1:34. Dustin, we have a couple of items to bring back, and then I think one of them was a discussion on the SO request, and so let's hold that till a little later in the meeting.
Okay.
And what was the other one?
The other one is Tom Ray coming at 3:30 to discuss ARPA and arsenic issues.
All right, so let's go back to the FY23 budget. So, Francis?
Thank you. So just to continue from yesterday, I know we want to get back into personnel discussion and get those things hashed out. Not knowing what this week how the week was actually gonna go. We had already scheduled the tax office to come in just to answer a question you had about their operating budget. In furniture and equipment, they had asked for, additional TVs or monitors for the lobby. And so the question had come up, you know, what was the need and why? So we had just went ahead and scheduled them. So I just thought we could go ahead, since they were ready today, to speak on that, and then we'll move back to personnel after that with Anna.
Okay?
Y'all can come on. So their departments, they have 4 departments, but the 2 main departments are 0590 and 0610. And both of those departments, there was an increase in furniture and equipment, like I said, for additional screens or monitors for the lobby.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Honorable Judge, Honorable Commissioners, I'm Randy Riggs, Tax Assessor Collector for the citizens of McLennan County. With me is my Chief Deputy, Kathy Holloman. Be happy to answer any questions that you all may have in regard to our budget. Understand that the first question was in regard to some TV monitors that we're requesting. They're more monitor than they are TV. What we have now for our queuing system is a system that has numbers as well as a PowerPoint on there. Well, the vendor is charging us money to be able to change that PowerPoint. What we have found out is if we have a separate monitor, then we can run our PowerPoint and then we can run our numbers. So that is the intent behind the request.
Okay, and so what do you run on the PowerPoint? What kind of information are you running on it? I mean, what purpose does it serve to have
Informational purposes, just to let people know in regard to property taxes, where to go, what to do.
Okay.
In regard to motor vehicle issues. Also, Parks and Wildlife, that type of work, where they're located, what to do. So just various information. I think we may even have one about the Commissioners Court on there, just to inform people as they wait.
I'm sure it's flattering.
It's
Do
enlightening.
you have a big one that flashes up, "We don't appraise your property"?
That is something we would need to add, because we would like to, but right now the vendor would charge us, and we're frugal. We don't want to spend that kind of money if we would get this monitor.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
So where is this going to go? Is it going to go where the current monitor is right now?
It is our intent to put it inside our office, because we have,
In the lobby or
We
in
have-
the, inside the tax?
inside ours. Right now, we have 4 monitors, and these 2 additional would go one on each side inside our locked doors.
Okay.
One in each room.
Yes,
Okay.
that's our intent.
It's a total of $500 in both departments, $250 each.
Yeah, okay.
We were just curious. We didn't know if y'all were gonna start hosting bingo games or what you might do with all those folks out there.
We have a different
So
standard
we
at the
are
tax
mon-
office.
You know, there's, in the lobby, there's the county, I guess, a county screen, and then y'all's queuing.
Could we use the county screen?
Wonder if anybody looks at it.
It hasn't been on in over a year.
And what?
It's not been on in over a year.
And I hadn't even noticed.
I guess nobody looks at it.
I noticed that
Who's in
today.
charge of it?
The show not coming on?
It used to be under the control of Amanda downstairs, and in charge, she came up her name, she queued it up, and then she left it to Deputy that passed away that was sitting at the podium there. And once the deputy passed away, their responsibility wasn't made anymore.
Never dealt with
Has not been turned on in years.
Was it hooked to something? Did it feed something, or?
It listed our job openings that we have here at the county, it listed what floors, any services we were looking for were located on. It had phone numbers, it had your pictures on it. It's like-
What did it run off of, a thumb drive or
I believe it ran out of HR.
it ran from HR?
Donna can answer that.
No, it's
Uh-oh.
it's a small computer that Tim and I replaced up there. Is the TV just not on?
It's just never been turned on.
We recently had a change in the display system, so I'll get with IT and figure out if it's related to that switch that's causing the issue, or if it's simply something to go turn on.
Yeah, it's just black.
So that might
The TV may just not be turned on.
I can guarantee you the small monitor for the tax office is on daily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely is.
And you may have noticed it's got the ticket number on one side,
Uh-huh.
and then it has due dates, what you need for the various things
Yeah,
you might
what
be
you need to
there
bring
for.
in, right,
And
yeah.
so people do sit down and they see it, and they get up and leave because they didn't bring it in order to do whatever transaction they can.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? Any problems with it? Okay. Okay.
And then I mean, you know, in furniture and equipment, there were some currency counters, cameras, and I think a chair. So those were the other requests that were included in furniture and equipment. I think that it seemed like that the lobby displays were I think the main question that day, but if you have any other questions, the other increases were reasonable increases for postage, for paper. There was an increase also for adding an online appointment system with a maintenance agreement. So I know that's something new, if you just want to briefly maybe share what that is.
Absolutely. That's where you can, in a sense, get in line online, where they can access our website and get into our queuing system and get a number while they're online, whether it be through the internet or actually we have a texting opportunity as well. So we're just trying to be as accommodating to the public as we can, be on the cutting edge so that we represent their expectations, meet their expectations. But you know, what we'd really like to do is exceed their expectations. I mean, we are the tax office.
So somebody at home could get a number?
Yes, they could look, they could,
Does it have a wait time then?
right, the way it's designed is you can look at the different offices and see how long the wait is,
okay.
and then determine which one you want to go to. And monitor or manage your time. Because really, and we've talked about this before we had the queuing system, the people that stood in line could avoid that because we have some downtime. The ones that are in line are usually a Friday afternoon or a Monday or the end of the month, the first of the month, or lunchtime. We've managed through lunchtime though. Nobody takes lunch between 12 and 1 in our office. So we've hopefully addressed that better. But we try to be as accommodating to the public as we can.
So that increase is for anticipated texting costs, but if we don't get that implemented this year, then it wouldn't be spent. But that's what NemoQ anticipated the texting increase would be.
Okay.
And that was a $5,500
Right.
increase to repair and maintenance.
The majority of that is the currency counters,
Okay.
and we did get quite a few counterfeits this year.
Really?
So we have implemented running all the big bills.
They kick them out, that's what I was thinking.
Most of them.
Yeah, well,
Every
nothing's
once in a
perfect,
while.
nothing's perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
What other questions? Anything else?
No, I think we were just, planning on talking about that operating section, so.
Okay.
Well, appreciate what y'all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then we can get back into personnel discussions. So we have Anna with us from HR. We can start.
Okay. Anna from HR.
Anna from HR, as opposed to Anna from somewhere else.
While she's getting set up and getting settled, I don't know if we'll get to this today time-wise, but we have prepared scenarios for some changes to the retirement plan. So if you gave a 1, 2, 3% COLA, what that would look like as far as if you paid for it up front or if you let that affect your rate for the next 15 years. Someone had asked about also the contribution rate, moving it to 7% and what that would do. So I just pulled that too, just if you would like to look at that. I've saved the spreadsheets on the budget workshop drive. But like I said, we can look at those in more detail later. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. Also, Commissioner Jones had asked about the last time we gave a COLA to retirees, and that was in fiscal year 2020, and it was a 2%. And we did not pay it up front. We did not make a lump sum contribution that year.
Okay. Anything else, Francis?
I'm sorry.
Anything else?
No, I was just letting her get settled, but, no, we can move back into, if you want to start with COLA and then move down our list of topics we need to discuss.
Good, thank you.
So yesterday, it sounded like that's where the court wanted to start today with personnel, is kind of getting down to our cost of living adjustment.
Right.
For FY '23. I don't have any major updates, other than the June release of the Consumer Price Index, which was 9.1%. So still trending upward, which has been the trend for the year.
So excuse me for interrupting, go ahead.
Just the year in January started with the 7% CPI and is just increased from there to 8 to now June, there's a 9%. So the double-digit cost of living adjustment is seeming more and more reasonable.
And then also, the fact that our COLA last year came up a little short of actually matching up to the CPI, and so that was the reason that you're recommending up to 11, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I gathered the difference. So last year's, I say last year, so the cost of living adjustment determined by the Social Security Administration for their effective increases beginning this year was 5.9%. Our cost of living adjustment was 3%. So I applied that difference to our estimate for 2023. The projected 3-month cost of living adjustment currently sits at 8.15%, not including the recent higher June CPI. So I just added those two figures together to get to my 11% estimate. I was able to see a consequence somewhat, or a result of last year's cost of living adjustment in our market competitiveness, using that market benchmark we have in compensation. Last year, we were sitting at a ratio of about 1.02. This year's recent compensation ratio sits at 0.95. So we did see a decrease there, and so not adjusting or accounting for that for next year may bring that ratio even lower.
So if we stick to our methodology on COLA, then next year we would analyze if we missed the mark this year, and we would adjust it one way or the other. So over time, you're kind of on the money, is that right?
That is the goal, yes, sir.
So how do we be sure that methodology is established in policy or whatever? Because you keep changing the rules of the methodology, not you, but I mean, entities can, and that's where we get out of whack sometimes. So it's not a policy, it's just a way that you're approaching it, that you're recommending the court we look at.
Yes, sir. It's just an additional reference point to look at, kind of where we were last year compared to market and compared to where we are now, and seeing if we've decreased or increased in competitiveness. So it's a reference point and a tool, maybe not necessarily a policy. Of course, that will be subject to change and adjustment as the court sees fit.
Okay.
Go ahead. What amount of COLA would get us to a 1.0 comp ratio? Do you know that?
Not off the top of
Calculate.
my head. I would take the difference. We're at 0.95 right now, so
Yeah.
applies 7%.
Yeah. So you're about 0.5% off, or 0.05.
Right, that would not take in, that would be relying on the 2020 market data that we have. So that was part of the reasoning there too, is why I do account for the fact that we don't have full countywide 2021 market comparison prepared. So that was another factor.
The 5.9 and 9.1 that we refer to, who puts that out? Is that United States, is that Social Security puts that out? Who puts that out, that number? Comes from Social Security Administration?
Right, that's what we
SSA?
use as reference.
Okay, that's their SSA. All right, then, when they put those numbers out, are they reflective of a particular region, or is that the United States as a whole, or is that Texas, or Central Texas? How much do they zero in? Is that a general number for the whole United States? So that takes into account $8 gasoline in California in that number. But it's not necessarily reflective of our cost of living here.
They do use national figures in their calculation. They use there's different consumer price indexes, types of indexes, and then there's also what they call unadjusted and adjusted CPIs, and then they can narrow it down by region as well. And so what they use is a national figure, and it's a CPI-W, which is wage earner index, and it's unadjusted.
Okay, so the CPIW does not tunnel down to a particular area. It's broad-based.
Correct, but they do have regional maps or figures that also pins down a CPI specific to a region as well. So I guess that you could say that there's 3 different tiers that the Bureau of Labor Statistics use for.
They have Southwest information.
Right.
Do you average, do you take 3 and average them, or do you focus on one and?
I do not. I use solely because then I feel like there's a lot of room for subjectivity in how I do it, and I'd rather be able to bring to the court and say, this is the precise formula that the Social Security Administration uses. This is the figure that I'm presenting to you. The only difference in that figure is that the Social Security Administration uses their third quarter average, which are the months of July, August, September. So I've just used our most recent third quarter, what we can call a recent quarter figure or average to assist us. But our true third quarter average, doesn't fall in line with our budget sessions. It would really be
Difficult to.
yeah, it'd be July, August, or I'm sorry, it would include June and July. Right.
Well, I'm looking at their Southwest data here, and they actually have a Waco MSA. Man, we need to probably study this data a little bit.
If the court would like me to narrow it down to our specific region, I can. If the court would direct me to do that, I'd be happy to.
Well, I think it needs to be consistent with the area that you use to compare our salaries.
Okay.
Because that's who we're competing with, right?
Yes.
So,
How difficult is that to do?
I can pull, it was just a different report that I would need to pull from the Bureau of Labor website. I do, looking at the Southwest region in previous months, it is possible that it's higher inside.
Oh, yeah, we're not talking about that.
Higher than the national?
Yes. There have been instances that I've seen the Southwest region CPI higher than the national CPI. So I do want to share that.
That's a little shocking. I'd like to see the two compared,
Okay.
well,
but I know we
and
can't.
I agree as well, but there's so many decisions we have right now contingent upon this, so.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to,
I'd still, yeah. Okay.
I don't think we've ever really, or have a policy to make up any deficiencies from the past. You know, I mean,
Yeah, I don't
mean,
think it's a policy.
It's all along, I mean, it's kind of this would be, to me, sort of like how we handled when we reduced the retirement, contribution. Maybe, you know, we piecemeal this over a certain amount of time, to get us, more, maybe a little more in line. Do a little more this year, and a little more next year, and the next year, and then maybe after 5 years or so, maybe 5 years or so, you're back in line.
But my only
Because,
concern
you know,
are,
sometimes, you know, inflation shouldn't stay this high.
can we remain competitive while that's happening? Because we already know our salary, according to the data that we've chosen to use, we already backslid a little bit last year. And so if we say, well, we'll catch up over a 4-year period, how much do we fall behind while we're catching up?
So, I like that. How much do you fall behind while you're catching up? I gotta think about that one.
Sound like a country music song.
That's the only thing that concerns me.
And I
is that
think,
we-
I think then, you know, you have to take a look at the whole picture, not just governments. You have to look at the private sector also too, because it sounds like that we are competing against the private sector.
No question about
And I
that.
think those numbers are gonna be astonishing. They're gonna,
But market includes that, right? When you go out to market values, that
Yes, sir.
includes the private sector.
So that's the market benchmark that we use is just workforce general employer data. We have a whole different benchmark for county comparisons. So that would not include our kind of other county counterparts.
That'd be all right if you're competing against other counties for employees, but that's really not necessarily the case.
Right. And we're not that far off the mark with our county counterparts, but because our county counterparts on average issued a 3% cost of living adjustment like we did. But we're not necessarily losing employees to other counties.
But we've got how many jobs that are open here right now that we have to be, we can't be that competitive, but we have to be conscious of the fact how many entities are moving in here and hiring it.
Amazon has started interviewing.
yeah, they're doing a job fair.
Was it, what, 700
Today.
spots? 700?
Yeah,
it 7 or
700,
5?
700, yeah.
700.
Yep.
And then we are at which I don't have a comparative figure with other local employers to compare to. I just know to ourselves.
I guarantee you, we're a lot easier to work for than Amazon is.
I think I would
I
agree.
mean, I'm not gonna, and I don't mind putting that out there either.
So we're at a 5-year low for applications received, and at a 5-year high for turnover at the county. I just want to reference that data as well. So I feel like that is an indicator of our competitiveness as well.
So what did that put us at then?
Well, what I'm hearing is that Southwest data might be something people want to see. And you're saying that don't be surprised if it's a little higher.
Right.
Don't know that I want to see it.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think you'll hear it tomorrow from Chris, is the potential for more industry is real high over the next year. And well into the talks with multiple companies that would have a great hiring need as well. So I don't think, I think it's gonna be tight for a while, and so we're really fighting over qualified folks, and, which is good for the qualified folks. Unemployment is, at an all-time low. Now, one thing, if the Fed, if their plan works, generally what happens is you see unemployment go up because many times if you're not in a recession, you're close to it. Not that I'm an economist, but I read a lot about that, and it just, but that could be a year off, or, even longer before that makes any.
And then
I think we're now is when we've got to compete.
Right, and then how does that interact when we're adding 1,000 jobs?
Yeah.
I know there's gotta be a net there. From one of our loyal listeners there, the June CPI for the Southwest region was 9.8. Just had someone share that with me.
Say that again?
The Southwest region CPI for June was 9.8.
That's correct. I just calculated that too off their table.
Is that your I told you so smile? Me thinking the private sector has always been robust and paid higher than public sector jobs. That's just historically. I don't want to get into the position where we're competing with private sector employment because we've established programs to ensure that that is always robust, and we're asking them to pay our people higher and to give them benefits. There's always been in a patriotic tone, always been a sense of duty to people who come to the public sector. That's why people who work for the district attorney's office understand they're not going to make what they make in the private sector. So I think I want to applaud Anna for always keeping us kind of focused on what our peer counties are doing. The only thing we really can be responsible for is making sure as a county and a public sector employer that we're competitive in that regard, because we're never going to outpace the private sector. They have a good quarter and they'll go through the roof on you. On the other hand, what we do offer, because we're under some more stringent state and federal rules, we give people a more comfortable, or I'm missing an adjective I want, but their employment is kind of more permanent.
Stable.
Yeah, because of some of the requirements on public sector. So we have our pluses, but we're never gonna be able to outpace the private sector. And I hope we don't, because I always wanna have a robust private sector, because that really grows your economy. But if we focus on how do we look, our employment, how are we treating our employees, knowing what they have to face as far as the economy, I think then we look at her data. I guess she got us good with that 9.8, huh? But, and we kind of focus on how do we keep our employees up to pace with the economy. Not, I think I'm gonna get in a losing game if I try to keep our employees up with their neighbor that works for, a really affluent private company.
But other public arenas is where,
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
like the city of Waco,
Yes.
we'll go there. From a law enforcement perspective, they'll
Yeah.
go to Woodway, they'll go to Belmead, they'll go to the higher paying
Mhm.
areas, and we need to keep pace in that arena.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, in some instances, make up a little bit of ground there.
Because, we've always done that. The private sector, you get a public sector job, you get trained, and then you go out into the private sector and you do well. So we've always been a training ground. And I think we put some really good people out into the private sector.
I just, one more thing to say. An $8 million COLA is going to handcuff a lot of things that we want to do over the next,
Hi.
next 10 days in putting this budget together.
Well, one thing we could do, just to play with the numbers, is input, let's say, the high side that the court would look at, and then start working through everything else and see how much room there is. That doesn't mean, you can always, we're gonna probably be adjusting a lot of different areas, which COLA could be one of them, but just for purposes of seeing where we would be, is plug that in, because it is such a big number. It's very impactful. So,
It's about 4 cents on our
And I
tax rate.
think you had that in there.
It is, and we do have it on the high side that you've discussed. That
Yeah.
number that was plugged in was 11%.
Okay,
It was COLA for all employees, backing out the 40 jailer positions. So that would be on all the remaining positions.
I guess the question is, if we do look at a 9 or 10%, is this court gonna be willing next year, if these numbers reduce themselves and drop off a good bit, are we gonna feel compelled to give a COLA of some kind, or are we gonna be okay with saying, hey, we don't need to consider that this year because of what what I'm saying is, if we're gonna play that in that arena, we need to be able to adjust either way.
Be consistent.
Yeah,
well, God willing, the same folks will be sitting here next year.
I'm banking on it.
Yeah.
That's my
And,
prayer.
pardon me?
That's my prayer.
Yeah. And so, other than that, you can't commit.
I
one
know,
to another one.
government is government, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was talking about the adopted methodology, if you, either formally or philosophically.
So we did 3% last year, and we should have done 5.6%. So that's, and so essentially we should, if we had done 5.9 last year, then this year we would only have to do, five?
That only gets us even, though. 5.9 only got us even, didn't it? It didn't put us ahead.
and so you still be looking at
You
8.
still be at the 9.
We'd still be at the 9.
Yeah.
9,
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
That's what gets us to 11, picking up that 2.
2, okay, there it is, yeah, all right.
Picking that up and adding it
I
to
got it
the
now.
CPI. So, put up the screen, I guess, of the general fund, with that in there, and then let's look and see, where the unanswered questions are.
And so again, that right under $8 million, that is an 11% COLA. And then you'll see there, of course, that list that keeps circulating, that we keep discussing. That puts us then, estimated ending fund balance of 48.13 million. And that would be right under that 33% goal.
Yeah, 39, and that's at the no new revenue rate.
That's at the no new revenue rate. There are, we don't know exactly, I know we are gonna have the conversation for economic development tomorrow. So they'll, if y'all wanna adjust those numbers, that change is still to come. But this should be pretty inclusive of everything that's been requested and you've discussed.
And so when you adjust like the COLA, that's setting, that number right there, 7.9 is the 11?
11%.
Okay, so will that program you have right there, that spreadsheet, if you bump it down 1%, will we see it reflected
Yeah.
everywhere?
Yes, sir.
Can you play with that?
Sure.
And do that?
Magic.
Judge, I did want to mention while we're doing that I too am not an economist, but I did spend one night at a Holiday Inn recently.
Yeah.
And no, I'm
Okay.
Well, that qualifies you.
What-
equal
that
to what my
qualifies me, doesn't it?
qualifications are.
What is a 1%? What is 1% COLA?
It's about $722,000, isn't it? Give or take.
I'm sorry.
If you divide that amount by 11, multiply it back by 10, that would give you another amount. What kind of math is that y'all call that?
Robinson.
Public math.
Public math. Public math.
That was my favorite.
So, is Commissioner Jones' suggestion, if we could take 1% out of the COLA, what does that do? Is that what we're driving at? So that gets you to 33.6. Okay,
So that brought you up above
right.
doing that.
Yes, so 7.2 million is a 10%, 1%, like she showed, each percentage being about 741,000. And that's COLA on actual salaries, step pay, think something, but also then all the taxes and benefits associated with that, Social Security, Medicare, retirement.
I'm gonna throw this out, just while you're manipulating the screen there. If you take off the first line, the personnel requested, leave the COLA at 10, zero out the next line, the next line,
You said to take this, leave that.
get rid of it. Get rid of that one. Subtract the employee leave balance from the incentive pay and credit that back to revenue. Take the 503 from the 850. Because we're gonna leave the leave balance in there. We're gonna leave that part.
So you want the leave balance transition, but no incentive pay?
Right, yeah, and that difference, to credit it back to general revenue then. What that would look like, yeah. And cut, yeah, and those are already cut, so how does that, when you press the button?
So there you'll see 48.87 million estimated ending with a 34.4%.
Okay.
As fund balance as a percentage
If you
of
need to,
expenditures.
put it back if you need to, I just wanted to see what it looked like.
Well, okay. So,
Well, while you've got that there. So you took out the 1.7.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was getting at, what we've talked about, what do you do, what if we did, and I don't know how we have to do it, but if we did 10% now with regards to the jailers? Here's what, I know we've got to do something, but instead of jumping out there and doing a 15 or a 20%, I think after we saw the unemployment numbers to know where it's not just us that's suffering from turnover statewide, it's going on statewide. I would like to be able to look at numbers to see, does 10% generate interest or does it not? And I would prefer we work with a number that we're comfortable going into the next budget year with, instead of just saying, hey, we're just gonna go ahead and cover the 20%, and we hope it increases. If it does, then we know we may have to make some additional increases in that area. But if we do go ahead and do 10%, and I'm talking about now. like
retention
you're requesting,
adjustment or something
Right,
like
a
that.
retention adjustment, and let's get that into the works, and let's see what it does. Let's see if it increases interest. But it's a number that we're okay being committed with going into.
And so what does that 10% do next year? Does it continue into the, where does that 10% come from?
Well,
Is that's the
so
COLA
here-
number?
Right, that's the COLA number. And what I'm just saying is.
we're
somehow
not
we-
calling it COLA.
No, but I mean, that's at 10%.
Right, so there's gotta be a way that we can implement that now.
Okay.
And then we'll get the opportunity to see between now and the beginning of the fiscal year, does it really change does it move the applicant needle at all?
But you do that without adding it again as a COLA for the next budget year.
That would be the intent up front, just to see if it makes a difference. What I don't wanna do is we run out there and we do 20% and it still doesn't move
The 10 plus 10.
Yeah, and we're still sitting here with not the applicants that we needed and we hoped for. So I'd rather cautiously go into that than just say, throw it all out there and let's hope. I would rather we get a chance to see with a 10% increase now, what does that do in the next few months? Does that really generate any interest?
You have about 90 days to look at it, somewhere close to it.
And I'm not sure how we structure that, but it,
And I'm not sure how we call it, but we have to be careful, what we call it, but,
I think we can call it a cost of living adjustment. They've just received it or have their COLA assigned earlier.
Justin?
Isn't there a legal issue with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, and Mike's on too, I believe, listening in. I don't think we could call it a COLA. It would really be an increase in their pay for retention or recruitment, I guess, and then they would just not, the kind of what's being proposed, they would receive 10% to their pay now and just not receive a COLA for FY '23 is the way I'm understanding. Mike, is that right?
That's the way I would understand it too, is that you're actually raising them, which you can with non-elected officials. You can do that during the fiscal year. You're actually giving them a raise, and then to prevent it from being, 20%, you leave them out of the COLA for this upcoming fiscal year because they've already got a 10% raise.
They just started earlier.
Do we have to declare any kind of fiscal emergency or anything to make that happen, Mike, or?
Francis,
No, I mean,
Adjust
it,
salaries.
anytime,
Yes, if you approve.
out of the general fund.
And of course, we try not to do that outside of budget time, but that's, definitely something.
right.
Okay, so my understanding then is what the thought is for the beginning jailer, or, I mean, who are we talking about? I mean.
So the request that they made with the 40 positions, okay? They say, hey, we need 1.7 of that, is what we need. So what I'm saying is, let's be agreeable to that right now. Allow them to do that. Allowing us, okay, go ahead.
Where is this 10% increase gonna be booked? Is it gonna be booked in next year, in this year, or next year?
It'll come out of this year's budget.
Yeah, so,
We have the budget.
But then it'll continue to come out in next year's budget because you're giving them a raise and it continues to go forward. I mean, it doesn't just stop after
It won't go
the
away.
first
So
year.
that 10% that's up there, the 1.7, that's for a full year, so that's looking at 23. If you, not knowing exactly what was gonna happen, if you said, hey, effective today, they're gonna get that 10%, then that, of course, there's gonna be some cost in this current year. And so that would also affect the bottom line. It just depends on, if you decide on that additional 10%, at what point does that get activated? This is assuming that I know we took it out, but that 1.7 million that's saying you activated it October 1st, so what it would be for a whole year. So we have, I think, 6 pay periods left in this year. So the cost of that for 6 pay periods, which could be absorbed into this current year budget. Does that make sense?
But the whole point of that is that's why we need to decide what the COLA is first.
Right.
Okay, because, they're just so asking, it just happens to be, they're asking for 10% now, and then whatever the COLA is, I want to see the activity level that would generate if we went ahead and made it applicable now. Because I'm just a little leery to do a 10 and a 10, which would put us in the 90th percentile.
Correct.
And what if we don't get the results we think we're gonna get? We're in the 90th percentile, we still don't have applications filled, and now
And you can't go back.
no, I just want to be cautious as we approach it. I want to work with them because I understand there's issues there. But I sure would like a quick peek at what does that look like if we go ahead and do the 10% now. That doesn't say anything about a COLA. I'm just saying 10% because that's what we would do.
That'd be a 10% raise, and then you could consider them for a COLA in the coming year, but you wouldn't have to include them in the COLA.
Right. And then along with that, to have another carrot out there is move the step up.
I like that idea. I like doing 10% now, see how it works, move that step up, and then if it doesn't work, we can come back and give them another 10% in
Or some amount.
in December, or another amount in December or January, something like that.
But it's just a cautious approach that gives us the ability to watch and see, do these pay changes, do they generate interest?
along that same line, if you move that step from 3 to 2, you could take that amount that was in that 2-year step, split it in half and do half of it at the end of 1 year and the other half at the end of the second year. Because they were wanting something up front to try to hang on to those people. I mean, that's another alternative.
Signing bonus.
That's another
You're
alternative.
talking about the signing, the.
Well, no, do it at the end of 1 year, because we're moving from 3 to 2. So at the end of second year, they will get a step, but give a half step at the end of the first year and the other half of it at the end of the second year. Just another thought.
Because, again, my concern on the signing bonus, I'd rather do something like this. The signing bonus, there's other entities that have it out there right now. That are offering more than that
That's not
for
working.
patrolmen, and they're not getting interest.
Not working.
And so I'm leery we're gonna have something that really is not gonna be that enticing, because going, well, I can go get 7,500 over at City of Waco and get in a patrol car and get 5 years.
Plus it sets a bad precedent. You know, you start that, and then you get all these other departments that may be having trouble, just because of the nature of our environment right now, and wanting to do sign-on bonuses. And it can open Pandora's box.
So it's just a creative thought.
I like what you said. I like what Will said about the step, moving it down. So I'm good with looking at the numbers, if we could get some firm numbers, what that would look like
Okay.
this year and.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So let's just say, I'm just throwing this out because that's what's up there. If the COLA you decided on was 10%, so we would go ahead and increase jailers and jail corporals 10%.
Right now.
Then that would carry forward. October 1st, all other employees would get that 10%. Then you would revisit it in the next fiscal year at some time, and you may want to increase that. Okay, so that number then, right there, that 7.2 million, that would be the increased costs for fiscal year 23, because it would still be adding 10% on for that whole year. It would be roughly, I think, about 350,000, and that's for this year. So if you did something as of, a point in time, that would affect your beginning fund balance. And so we have that in there just so you can see how that affects the bottom line. But that would be your cost that we would need to spend this fiscal year and re-expense this year to get us to September 30th.
And
So
then,
that would be the cost there.
right. And then to get, I guess, parity between, because juvenile stepped up, whenever we set COLA for juvenile, we adjust it back to getting parity with the jailers and juvenile correction
You would
officers.
have to adjust their COLA.
Yeah.
So
That
So
might
they
be,
adopt
their budget is controlled by the board too, so that may be an issue if you're taking away money from their COLA.
Well, but Mike, the whole point is it created an issue.
When they
When they bumped
did it,
everybody's
yeah.
pay up, that created an issue for us. And what we're trying to do is solve that.
So when the board adopts, because it is a completely, separate entity, they adopt just saying, we adopt this budget with the intent that whatever COLA all other employees get will be added on, and then that gets to be their finalized budget.
So they're gonna get a 10 and a 10 then, sounds like to me.
That's, so they got an increase and then the COLA. So then, of course, that comes to you as that transfer amount out of general fund.
The idea was to adjust the COLA, down where they would, all correctional
Par
officers.
with
make
this,
the same.
with the jail. And so
But that would have to be something, again, that the
people that
board would
try
need
be in
to
Incarceration.
Consider.
weigh in
they're
on.
the same playing field.
As the court, you have the ability to say to the transfer amount, we're not agreeable to that transfer amount, but if you weren't, then that budget would go back to the board.
But are they
And then
getting a
they
10
would
and a 10?
have control of the details again on accommodating whatever your request may be, but.
What we're saying is that board would have to meet now and also settle in on the 10% now? I mean, or does it automatically, the board has to vote that.
We can set COLA for next year by department if we wanted to, the way I understand it. You know, we generally go across the board, but this was just a measured,
Yeah.
and talking to Colin Coker, he also explained that even though there was mention that several of the jailers from SO have moved over to juvenile, in the long run, there's been more go the other way. And so, you know, therefore, getting them equal would be, at least get everybody a,
Well, explain
and
to me how
put
they,
one over, advantage over the other.
well, how are they gonna get 20% then? How was that gonna work,
Well, if it's across the,
but it's not.
I mean, their salary is, the way I understood you say it, is that when the county adopts a COLA, then they get that same COLA.
And that is because the juvenile board has, that's been their.
Historically, that's what
That's
they've
been
done.
their choice. So they could have
So they
gone
got
any
a,
direction.
so they got a bump,
They gave a bump.
last month.
Yeah.
At the last board meeting.
Right.
And now, are they gonna also get 10%?
That's my
when we
point.
get our, yeah.
Yes.
That's my point is, so do we wanna consider a different COLA there to try to get correctional officers at the same level?
I think we have to do that.
I do too, Will, because we're gonna continue this game.
Yeah,
where
it's
one's
gonna be-
And it's, right.
So-
You're dead on, Commissioner.
But you're saying, granting that 10% now
Mm-hmm.
to jailers
Mm-hmm.
and not granting them
Well, I have it written down.
10% to start next year, we can't do the same thing with juvenile?
You do not
We
decide
don't have- 'cause we
on
don't
their
control that.
salaries. Yeah.
But
Or
granting the
school.
10% right now to jailers, how does that guarantee that juvenile is gonna get 10% right now?
Juvenile already has
They've
got.
already
got it.
voted.
They've already gotten 10%
That happened prior.
last month.
And then next year, if we grant the 10, that's
It
where
was
you're
increase
saying,
in salary.
we can come to 20.
Yeah.
That's where you're saying, okay.
So, and what we need to do is exclude, maybe make this for all incarceration employees, juvenile and jail.
And so then the juvenile board would have to agree to that. So, and I guess, they want employees, like the COLA to be consistent. So they could have said any COLA they wanted to, but they had said, add on what everyone else gets. And that's consistently what happens. So again, that's just their vote.
What did juvenile give their employees?
How much?
Yeah, what did,
46 is the,
They went
they
to
didn't
40.
get a 10% increase in salaries across the board, did they?
it was for their juvenile detention positions.
Okay, and all
detention
of
went
those got what? They went, I thought, what, 41 to 46 or something like that?
They went to 46 and then their supervisors went to,
Oh, you put together.
So they didn't get a
62.
10% across the
Haley will
board.
pull up. No, it's not across the board. She's gonna.
It's
pull
just
up
for
the
detention
sheet.
employees.
supervisors are 52. And juvenile officers, 46.
So it looked like they got what, they got like $5,000 to those positions, they went from 40?
We're gonna pull up so you can see the amounts.
Well, going back to the process, the Commissioners Court has the final authority on the numbers.
Transfer.
And if the board didn't agree with them, they could bring a mandamus suit to change it. But usually we're stuck with what they send down to us.
Okay.
And so, they're just
Yeah.
22 column to 23, and then you can see the increase on the side
Okay.
and the number of positions it affected.
So it went up to 58?
On some of them.
On that first one.
What, 3,000?
46 to 58?
4,000?
Haley's added in, there's 6.9% on the supervision officers.
That's the 58?
58.
Am I seeing the wrong number?
So supervision officers,
Detention manager, 4 positions,
And
50.
th-
yes.
And this budget is still subject to y'all's approval.
Okay, supervisor,
Yes,
52.
so the trans,
So I hear what you're saying. What we've done historically, their request is no different than some of the requests on the sheet that Anna gave us, is that when we approve employee increases, then they get the county COLA. Your concern is, however, how do you get those correctional positions to be even in this environment and in this environment?
So just to add some context to that, kind of what sounds like maybe back and forth with the juvenile detention center and the jail. So there have only been 3 individuals from the jail to leave to go to juvenile out of a total of 52 separations they've had for the total since the beginning of the year. We've not seen any since the 3, so I'm not sure if that will continue even with this salary difference.
Gotcha.
It's a small percentage.
And are the requirements the same? Do they have differing?
High school diploma for the base juvenile supervision officer position. They're comparable.
I think they work different, though. I think the shift
Da-
hours.
Daily requirements are certainly different.
My understanding, I think there's a little bit more, correctional people at juvenile are involved in a little bit more of the teaching aspect.
Mhm.
I understood that right.
Classroom.
Mhm.
But what issue we want to tackle first here?
Well, I guess the other thing to consider is if we go to, or put some COLA in, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, just so it's not 0, but
Have we set it, is there any mindset as far as what that COLA should be amongst everybody?
I sure hate giving a 10% COLA. I think it's, I don't think anybody in the marketplace out here is gonna give a 10% COLA.
I agree. The only point that I'll make to that is we do lose people to other municipalities. I don't know that we lose them to counties, but we do lose them to other municipalities. Can we close the gap a little bit? That's all I'm asking, that hopefully this COLA would close the gap.
Yeah,
And maybe make people think twice before they went to
before they
a
leave.
municipality somewhere that typically do outpay us.
On your general fund spreadsheet now, so that 36.3, so we're looking at 3.3% to play with to still maintain the 33% reserve fund balance. Okay.
With that
With that scenario right there?
scenario up there right now.
Right. What happens, Anna's gonna throw something at me, if we take out the leave balance transition and maybe look at that next year? I don't know. I don't know how many people are gonna leave and ask for their comp time this year. I don't know.
well, it could be worse next year. I think it's cheaper right now, and I think it's an employee benefit to go to PTO. Being on it myself and been in both systems, it was much better, and then plus managing people. NPO, you don't have to ask personal questions or have to get.
And that
I'm
would,
saying the PTO, I'm saying the payout of comp. Because that 500,000 is to pay people's comp time that off.
go to the PTO.
So we can go to PTO. That's gotta be clear.
We can, in theory, keep comp policy as it is and do PTO. But the comp time payout, the idea behind that was, of course, the immediate payout
Plus managing
lump sum
people.
right now for employees, and then also to address some of the court's concern about comp time balances, getting that off the book and moving to an annual payout. And also not doing it now would then mean if we did move forward with it next year, if the court decided to do that, you would be paying out that amount plus
Whatever else secured over there.
And if you paid
whatever
it,
COLA, was
you paid
assigned.
it half and half,
On there.
you'd end up paying more next year because of contingent buildup. Okay. But I mean, the reason it's in right now is because we took it off incentive pay, according to that. So, I mean, to eliminate both of them would be hard on the employees.
How do we take a long-standing policy of if you approve the pay increase, that's just your new salary, and then you get whatever COLA the county's going to adopt, but not this department? Just how do we logistically and legally do that?
Well,
It's a good idea.
Because they're
but how do
starting
we do
early.
it? Huh?
They're starting early getting the 10%. If you're
I'm talking
talking,
about juvenile.
oh, juvenile.
Yeah, how do we, they're, historically, what they did this year is what is done. They followed all county policies. Now we're here at the COLA, and we're saying, but this department's not gonna get that COLA. How do we legally and logistically do it?
That increase they got was really a cost of living increase is what it
No,
amounted to.
it wasn't.
Retention, was it retention?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was
They got a pay increase to their positions.
But it was
Due-
retained.
What I'm
to
saying, it
retention.
wasn't a COLA. They didn't get, they're not getting a COLA adjustment. What they got was a pay increase.
Right.
What these
course.
requests, so they got a pay increase.
I just don't believe that we should make I'm sorry.
No, and I'm not saying I disagree. I'm saying, how do we do it?
Well, if you remember, it hadn't been that long ago that we found out that we had, various people throughout the county that weren't applying the COLA equally. So we know it's been done in the past. It may not have been done with the court's approval, but it's been done. My only issue in this is, when it comes to correcting a problem and an issue, I think you have to look at it differently than, hey, we've always done it, so we gotta continue to always do it. We're trying to fix a problem. And if we don't, we are gonna create another problem.
Yeah.
I'm not for making up for what we didn't do last year. And especially on the COLA calculation. If we wanted to do an 8% COLA or a 9% COLA this coming year, I would be fine with that. But I just don't, and I think we're going to be, I think we're going to take some criticism for even that large.
Other thoughts?
I don't disagree with Will. That's more in line with what I was originally thinking,
Well,
8 or 9.
And that's why I was saying we need to be prepared to act next year, because if
Yeah.
basically over COLA this year, we gotta be willing to make it right next year. So that's the only thing I would say. If we do a higher number, we need to be conscious of the fact that we might have to make adjustments next year. So it may be easier to start at you got a 9.8 for the Southwest region. You've got numbers that are coming in. You've got, what was it, 8 no, it was 9.1.
9.1.
So 9 seems to be a number that's coming in to play a lot.
Yeah. And I think, I would support a 9 because we can get to the no new revenue rate, which is our commitment, start out with, and we can still be at the 33% or above in, unfunded, unassigned fund balance, and at least put what I think a concerted effort in retaining, employees where we've got historical turnover.
So how much is a 9% COLA?
Be 1.4 off.
Thank you. When I had to bring the briefcase, I thought that was in it, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so how much is a 1% COLA?
You said what, 747,000? 747,000.
something.
Yeah, I knew that'd be best.
What happened?
Because when I multiply, I don't know, I'm just gonna.
So this just, we can plug whatever number you want in the bottom, but like at the top, there's, like 1, 3, 9, 10, and then 11. So, I mean, we can, and it doesn't even have to be, you know, of course, a full, a whole percent if you want something in between.
So per percent is
720,000.
Yeah, 722, but I'll check. Two percent be 1.44. I'm close.
You didn't like that one?
yeah.
What that 9% do to that general fund spreadsheet?
Increase economic development.
9%.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this number needs to say above 50. That's just that's been my goal.
Any other thoughts? We still want to come back and address the request on the 10% now, starting now, whether it be so I guess if we establish what the overall COLA is,
Yeah.
and that will
And
get us back to.
also, there are some other areas that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I agree.
So bridges, there's a bridge that's budgeted in that I don't need to replace this year. It's over 600,000 that can go. So there's still some areas that we need to go back and pull some stuff off.
Yes, we need to go
And-
back to all operating.
Right, and Zane did a workup that I think y'all might have been copied. But look at it, and if you have a bridge or low water crossing that probably can't get done this next fiscal year anyway, or it's just time for it to be replaced, but it's safe, it might be a few that we can pull out. And I know Precinct 4 had one that was $600,000, but they feel good about going ahead and pushing it to the next year. So, but y'all look at that. Zane sent it out just a while ago, so.
Okay.
And, you know, feel like you need to do them, fine. Just saying this is.
And we've still got, some discussion on positions that we want to put dollar placeholders in. That we
Yeah.
haven't changed yet, right?
That's right.
So there's still some huge adjustments there that are going to be favorable to getting the.
Okay, that puts a 10% increase on jailers in this fiscal year. And then it carries them over with a 9% COLA.
Yeah, that 350,000 is there, but that would be a this year cost.
That was not doing a 10 and a 9 was not, because you're doing, that was not my intent on that.
Okay.
My intent was to do a 10% this year is what they were requesting was the 10%. And then we monitor and see how that works out. If it encourages and increases people to apply, great. If it doesn't, and we got to make some minor adjustments in the first quarter next year, if we think we need to, we can.
Right, and I agree and understand what you're saying. On that spreadsheet, what we've done, they get a 10% increase now. And then like all county employees,
Wouldn't get it till October 1st.
they don't get the 9% COLA?
Who?
Jailers, I'm talking about jailers. I'm
so-
trying to understand
So
this.
the jailers.
That's for all positions, isn't it?
Yes.
That COLA, that's for all
it's-
positions?
Right now, the way our our thing, it's on all positions, so
Okay.
that's gonna give you an estimate of what, if we continued, when you look at 9, that is different than 10, so it would, I guess, be a little higher because you're just looking at jailers, but it's gonna give you an idea. Where it
Okay,
says,
well-
the
don't want
line
that.
says
You don't want
COLA.
that.
Well,
That's, I don't, that's not our intent.
right.
Our intent is to keep that jailer increase.
Yes,
If they go up 10% next pay period,
yes,
then they stay there
yes,
at,
Through 23.
through, until we readdress it
Correct.
again.
Until, and
In
then,
the 23.
so the line
fiscal
item
year.
that says literally COLA, we can't do that at this moment in time, but
right.
that would be broken up. It would say, almost say like jailers and corporals. It would say jailers and corporals, 10% for next year. All other employees, then, right now, we're looking at 9%, 9% COLA.
But the
Okay.
key being is that we monitor this.
Oh, yes, yes,
You know,
yes.
we're not saying
Just
that
for
that's,
discussion.
what we're saying is, instead of just diving in and taking the 20% jump, we need to wade into it, we need to ease into that.
Every 2 weeks, I want to know how many jailer applications that we get.
After this?
And we're not calling what we're gonna start off with in this year a COLA,
Right.
right?
Right.
Calling it a raise.
And do it legally, whatever way you have to do
Whatever
it.
term you need to use.
Yeah.
And we may end up having to put some additional funds towards that, but I just want to be cautious in doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good.
Supply and demand. Just look at it and
And it,
be
and it-
prepared
it-
to move.
It is like you said, supply and demand. There is only a certain supply of people
Money.
that's of people who are going to demand that are going to want to fill those jobs.
And so I think just, it won't, of course, in the grand scheme of things, won't change that percentage very much at the bottom, but I think it'd be about 170,000 more if the jailers get that 10 now and it continued.
Okay.
All our employees get 9% as of October 1st. But just to probably add about $170,000 to that number.
What is that and so, what does that 10% do to their starting salary? That jailer starting salary?
10% would be
It gets them
1.10
to
times
what?
42 times 983, 42 times 983 times 1.10.
I have it written down. It's
47,281.
Say it again?
47,281.
Okay.
Which gets them very, yeah,
Here, I'm gonna,
I guess,
that's 10%.
And this is
And then
for the corporals also,
What
right?
percentile does that put us in compared to,
Yeah, that's a good question.
okay.
So 10% gets them 47,281.
Judge, how do the corporals fit into this?
It's figured,
how does the corporal fit into it, Mike? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That was just the request they had, that it be inclusive of their corporals.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
this that we passed out, the other day, you had mentioned like what would 5%, 6%, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this just shows what, between 5 and 10%, what that does to the salary for a jailer and a jail corporal.
Okay.
For each of those columns, and then what the total cost is. If that helps, just to get a bird's eye view of it.
Okay.
So Commissioner Perry, in regards to the starting pay of this year for the 2022 budget, to go ahead and make a move now, what you're waiting for from this group is what that percentage, what that COLA would be, because you're going to match that dollar for dollar, or a percentage wise. So if we say 9, then it's going to be 9% starting next pay period.
Or That was the initial thought?
Yeah.
I mean, if we did a 10 and a 9, I mean.
Because if you don't do it, then whatever the COLA is, there's disparity. If you did 10, you overdid the COLA, you know, and.
Versus everybody else.
Yeah, versus everybody else, whenever, so I think it needs to be the same number.
Okay, I can agree to that. And again, the main focus on this is for us to be as consistent as we can, get the immediate funds available. Let's see what it does to recruitment.
Yeah.
Hopefully it changes things, makes things better. If it doesn't, then we gotta come back and visit again. But I look at that as being a more prudent approach than throwing 20% out there and let's say, hey, let's hope that it changes things.
Well, and I think,
and we may end up there, who knows? We don't know that.
we need to have a plan about what we would do if it's not working. In other words, let's have a plan that says, all right, this is how we've progressed, but we're not there yet.
First step.
We need to put more money in.
Right, first plan A is this, and then,
so
if not, then we gotta go to plan B. What does that include? What does that
And we
look
just
like?
keep adding until we have an adequate amount of qualified employees that get hired.
And I understand their care and their concern for their staff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But we're getting dangerously close to violating our fiscal policy that we put in place years ago, and we have to honor that.
Commissioner Perry, to answer your question related about the percentile, so 48,000 would be the 75th percentile.
In the
so-
75th percentile?
So a 10% increase
So that's
would
pretty.
get them about
pretty
there.
high.
We're getting the 75%. But that's what they asked for.
And where are
In
we
their
at
memo,
now?
that's what they asked.
percentile
They
are-
asked for
We're going,
10% raise for all jailers and jail corporals to their base pay.
Right, and then that alone puts them in the 75th percentile in the state.
in the state,
Right, for the state,
For the state.
75th percentile based on 2021 data.
You know, and I think it's the expectation of taxpayers that I don't think they want us to be the lowest, and I don't think they want us to be the highest. I think we need to be somewhere, probably north of the 50%. And that would put us about right at 75. We ought to be competitive. It ought to affect the turnover, which cuts training costs and those things.
And emphasize to them, this is our first shot at it.
Yeah.
It's an improvement, it puts you in the 75th percentile. If it doesn't work, we'll reevaluate and we'll come up with that other plan at that time.
Right.
But it just, I think it's the most prudent approach from a tax dollar perspective. Let's see what it does. Let's see if it helps.
Right.
Right.
And put it in there now so they can start advertising it.
10 or 9.
Pardon me?
That 75th percent, was that figured on 10 or 9?
So the 75th percentile average is 48,000. 9% brings that base pay for jailers to 46,851.
So we need to be at 10 then.
Right, 10%.
That amount would be 47,281.
That's 10%.
That would be 10%.
But what I was saying, what percentile is the 9%?
Well, it's lower than 7, I don't know the exact.
so
So
75
But it'd be above
percentile is
50, but below
48,000.
75.
I only have averages for the 50th and 75 percentile, so it would be in between.
Well, what were you
So
saying?
you could
I thought she
extrapolate
said that
Right.
75th
We
percentile
can
was.
double math.
Okay.
Okay.
And I could bring progress reports to the court related to any changes in turnover and applications received following the increase.
Well, I'd like to be able to sit down with Pam and David, whoever, and talk about what we will do if our expectations aren't met. What can we do as a court? What would we approve to give them a comfort level that, you know, we are looking at this hard and strong. We're willing to put money in it. We just want to measure it and making sure we don't overfund it. And the fact that we're going to be flexible all along the year, then we can look at that, would tell me that we're ready to address whatever the environment of that shows. So,
was additional step pay, something that the court was going to consider for.
Yeah, and that was part of what I was thinking, is that along with that, we moved the step plan up to where it's in year 2 and not year 3.
But it's not an additional.
No, it's just, it just gets there sooner, and so it gives,
Yeah,
so they get rewarded in year 2 instead of year 3.
because the current steps are what, 3 what?
3, 5, and 7.
So then it would be 2, 5, and 7. Right?
That,
Is that what you're saying?
It could be, I mean, we
4 and 6?
we could look at it and see what does it take us to be competitive. That might be part of the other plan, of what do we
We
got.
need to assign a dollar value to that, because we're gonna get there one year quicker. Or how many people are gonna move to that first step in the next fiscal year? Who wouldn't move until the following fiscal?
So modify the step pay and not do the signing
Right,
thing.
just move the step closer.
Okay,
'Cause by the time they get through jailer school, get through training, it's not that far down the road, and then bam, they qualify for the first step.
okay.
Oh,
so was a 2-year step more what the court,
And what does that do? Tell me that figure. What is the first year step for a jailer?
The amount of dollars,
Yeah,
the first step that they get
yeah.
is, looking at deputies, 1,569.
1,500,
69
1,500.
is the first step. And then they don't get that all, they just, that's tacked on to their regular pay.
Total divided by
Spread out
12.
over the whole year.
Right.
And so were you saying move that down to a 2-year benchmark? Okay.
Their pay goes up by the 1,000 plus?
Correct.
Okay.
so
That's
year
better
2,
than
they get a
signing bonus.
$1,500.
Yeah, that's better than a signing
ask if
bonus.
they speak.
Right, and they gotta stay to get it. They don't
Right.
get it up front and
And
then,
then,
right.
And you're just talking about the jailer side, not
I need a break.
sheriff's deputy?
yes, just the jailer side, jailers and jailer corporals.
You know, I don't know. I mean,
But
that's
the-
something
that's
that can
all
be,
they're asking.
that's something that should be considered possibly, because do we want to keep them, the same? And what does that look like? What financial picture does that bring in?
Okay, I've got a suggestion. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, I want to ask David or Pam to speak. They're online, and so just let them get their response off that. So let's, okay, well, let's take a 5-minute break. It's 2:58.
Recording stopped.
jailers, do you also know, like other departments, what our comp ratio would be?
I've calculated that for the departments that have submitted requests.
Okay,
Um,
so you could tell us, whatever, COLA that we, decide on or discuss, you could tell us where the comp ratio would be post application of the COLA.
Yes, based off
Or adoption.
2020 data, I could compare at least for that market benchmark,
Okay.
where would we be at ratio-wise on average across all positions.
Okay.
The internal ratios would remain the same because positions aren't changing relative to each other. They're all
Right, yeah,
changing
yeah,
together.
that's right.
But for the external ratios, I can run those figures based on
Yeah.
a 9% and see where that lands everyone.
Okay. Sounds like, David's coming to court, so,
Coming in?
yeah.
If the court, I know we're waiting to hear for feedback, but if the court were to decide on an action for this fiscal year, would the following pay period be the expectation for the adjustment for the jailer and jailer corporal positions?
I think so, as soon as possible.
Right, okay.
And I guess are we at 9% or 10%?
What was the number?
Well, we haven't decided, exactly, what that, so that could be a decision, but I don't know if there's other information that you want, to make that. So, you know, we've talked about 9 or 10, but, David?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to address the court? How are you?
Excellent. How are y'all doing? So we've been listening, and when y'all commented that you might want to speak with us, my laptop engaged in some funky activity, so I just drove down here real quick.
Okay.
We appreciate y'all's consideration. In regards to the issue that we're currently having with our jail staff, it means a lot to us. It means a lot to the employees. We are, from the discussion that y'all have been having, we agree that, you know, that we have no problem with providing y'all with metrics, supporting HR, and providing y'all with that data so that y'all can see what kind of progress is being made, if it's being helpful, and then having that open communication line with the court if it doesn't provide us the relief that we need to look at alternate solutions and different methodologies of how we can make that work for our staff, our county, our business. I also listened to y'all speak about the different step tiers as far as changing some of those tiers to earlier onsets, which Commissioner Perry, I get it, I do, and I think that it could be effective in that interim. And when I think about it, we're trying to think about how we can get them to, you know, the career goal of investment, right? For us is trying to get that employee to investment and not make our jailers day labor. We want to make it a career for these folks that they want to stick with the county and stick with it. So if we can have those proper steps to get them through promotional process, through opportunities for patrol, through academy, through step raises, and those step raises are there to, you know, fill the gaps when other things aren't there to fill those gaps, to keep those employees interested in pursuing their career at the county. We 100% appreciate that consideration and support it. Absolutely.
And obviously, the planning would start now on what do we do if it doesn't work out?
Yeah, I agree 100% that they need to know that we're not just saying we're gonna help you. If I were them, I would say, hey, tell us exactly how what your plan is.
And so that would
What
be
does that look
something
like?
that would have, and that would be something that we'd have to put together, and obviously you guys from your department would know who, and Judge would probably figure out who, but just so you guys know we're serious, that starts now. So we're ready come January. it's not, you know, it's not doing what we thought it would, it's gonna need additional massaging. We're ready, we've already got that plan ready and in place. And then the other piece to that is, I just wanna watch and just make sure, and I understand where you're coming from, but I still worry about the senior staff and the compression issue. And I just wanna make sure that we're comfortable and that we don't, our senior staff don't feel
understand.
like they're being neglected or.
And can I, you know, I'll tell you just a brief story. I don't want to name any names, but I had many people text me yesterday while we were speaking with y'all. And some of these people text me and said, you know, I don't even need a COLA. I just need bodies. I can't keep disappointing my people. Like, these people are dying. I've got to do something to take care of them. So the general consensus that we have amongst those folks are that the proletariat has been neglected for some time, and we just have got to do something to try and get those base employees. That's why we're not trying to present a package that's, you know, across the board. We're only trying to address the problems in the positions where the problems are currently existing.
So that's the question I had. These are just the jailer and corporal positions. The your command staff is gonna get the 9% in October, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, if that's what you choose, it's to every employee.
Yeah.
If we go across the board. And that's not where, generally speaking, that's not where the turnover is.
Right.
And if you'll allow me to fully answer your question, because that was just, you know, partial, if I can directly, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was unprepared to drive down here today. There is a large gap, and I'm loading my all employees file right now, between jailer, corporal, and sergeant. When we did the salary normalization back with the step pay system and slightly prior to that as well, where we kind of consolidated all the positions to where there weren't a lot of different salaries for all the different positions. Like jailer didn't have 8 different salaries that could exist within jailer. It was all normalized. The gap between jail corporal and sergeant, which is normalized between the jail and enforcement side, is enormous. So there could be some compression there. In fact, the compression, in my opinion, is healthy to bring it in, because we have jailers and jailer corporals who are getting promoted to be demoted to go to patrol, to lose a ranking position and go to patrol. So it will bring those positions more in line with the duties that they're engaged in, especially for the jail corporals. When you talk about supervision, those jail corporals are supervising up to 42 people on a shift. So there's a lot of supervision that's going on there to get paid less than what a base patrolman is getting paid. And that's not detracting from the base patrolman. But that compression will assist those positions and help us to have a more healthy structure, command structure within the department overall. Because our current jail corporals, just to give you all the information on it. Jailer corporal is 49,476. And sergeant is, let me find one.
71,450.
Bingo. That's a pretty big gap. So we could stand to live with some, and I know you had mentioned this yesterday, and I didn't have my all employees database. We could stand to live with some compression in that area specifically, because that lifestyle change, when you think about it too, because jailers can go to jailer sergeant. So you're talking about an employee going from making just one rank stepped up from $50,000, right below $50,000 a year, to over $70,000 a year. That's huge.
Yeah.
And when you look at the gap too between what a jailer makes at the maximum step and what a jailer corporal makes year one, it is virtually nothing. So having that compression or squish, if you will, would be perfectly fine, in our opinion. It definitely helps the structure overall.
And I appreciate them having that perspective.
Yes. It's just a very, very candid perspective to have, but as transparent as we can be.
Any questions for David?
And can I ask one question?
Yes.
The court was talking about the different steps and what the step would be, and I kind of went, that's when my laptop went funky. Were you talking about changing the years at which those steps come in? Okay. And what were y'all thinking on that, just out of curiosity? I'm sorry.
Initially, we just looked at this particular scenario and the first step for the jailers, and then we were getting into discussion before we had recess about, is it gonna be, are we gonna apply it to the law enforcement side or just the correctional side? Right now, it would be the correctional side, going from a 3-year to a 2-year.
Yes, sir. I see that causes a difference in how that's applied across. And when we originally did the salary refinement, and that's the court's decision ultimately, I'm just thinking out loud with y'all,
Okay.
for the sake of consistency. But at the same time, I also understand that we don't have the problem with enforcement right now that we have, or with command staff or command structure that we have with our 2 base jail positions. Those are definitely a bad problem for us that we need help and we need addressed. So I don't have a problem. I don't think the department has any problem saying change it to the 2 for the jailers and the or jailers and jail corporals, or just jailers?
Jailers and jail corporals.
Okay, jailers and jail corporals.
Everybody that's being affected by this change.
Yeah, I would have no problem saying do that. And then, if it tends to work out better as a system, and if we want to come back and ask y'all for that consistency among the other ranks, then we can do that at a later time, as long as the court's willing to at least listen to that. But right now, we just need to address that main issue.
And just need to know what that financial impact is, if we looked at doing it across the board.
Sure.
But you said patrol, but y'all are down, what, 7 in patrol? 7 in patrol right now?
Yes.
Short?
It is more than we have been down in a long. And I will tell you too, because Ben, our Commissioner Perry, had asked a question about being industry-wide yesterday. And I was reluctant to answer because I've done some research, but I'm like Commissioner Smith said, I've stayed at a Holiday Inn, but I'm not an economist. So it is industry-wide.
Yeah.
It is nationwide, it is statewide, it is enforcement-wide, it is correction-wise, but correction is certainly getting harder than enforcement is.
Sure.
TDC shut down 6 of their facilities, 6 large prisons this year alone because they can't staff them. TJJD about 10 days ago, I know y'all brought up TJAD, they gave a 15% raise about 10 days ago to their base staff, 15%, because they cannot staff their facilities. So it is certainly a job where the general community is having a hard time looking at the price tag and the duties listed and saying that that's worth over sitting in an air-conditioned office Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So I get it. And if any of y'all are ever concerned about the job and how that job works, y'all are more than welcome to come out to our facility, talk to our employees, look at them. We don't mind. We're an open book about y'all coming out and seeing the facility and what goes on and what those people have to deal with. So, and that's nationwide. It's going to be very trendy nationwide.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
No, and I would just say in regards to that, we recognize that, and we do want to be a part of the solution, and not for you guys to look at us as part of the problem. That's why, let's do this now, and let's immediately go to work on Plan B.
I accept that.
We roll into the end of the year, and we're still struggling. We know we got to make some changes.
And I just want to express that, from yesterday, I don't mean to come across as a jerk, but we have a real problem and we need some tools to help it. And in the past, the court has always been very supportive of providing the tools, this being a tool that y'all give us. And then it is our job to break our backs to make sure that that tool does what we said it would do. And that is the commitment that you have from me and Pam, Chris, Rich, our command staff, and our jail staff going forward. You give us the tools and we will produce a win for you.
We appreciate that. Any other questions? Major, how are you today?
I'm good, how are y'all?
Fine.
Do y'all have any questions?
She had a further drive.
Yeah.
A longer drive. Oh, we're good. We're good. Thank you, David.
We're good.
Thank y'all very much.
All right, y'all have a good day. Need to squeeze John in somewhere in here, and then we've got a call with Tom Ray calling in too. So, any questions pertaining to this with Honor right now?
I have an answer to it, just, I think it was Commissioner
You
Perry's.
what?
Forgot to turn this over. I have an answer for Commissioner Perry's question, the question on the resulting comp ratio for market.
Okay, yeah.
Depending on which COLA was applied. So, and this is just for market, we'd be at a 1.1 for 9% and a 1.12 for 10%. But that's based on 2020 data. So,
Which is 2 years old.
Right.
Right now.
right. So it would put us ahead just based on that data, but
Probably not.
probably not.
What if we did a 5% COLA?
What would the ratio be?
Mm-hmm.
One 1.07.
Now, make sure that's jailers. That's not.
This is our countywide,
This is our countywide.
Countywide?
our countywide figure.
But in that, would you go, and here's when it's skewed? Would there be an area that would skew it? You understand what I'm saying?
I don't think so.
So if we give these pay increases to the jailers right now, that will put them at a much higher comp ratio. So does that skew the overall, when you're looking at a countywide perspective? Because what I'm afraid of, you go, well, if we go to 5, it's still a 1, but it's skewed. It could very well be, and it wouldn't be as impactful to the other employees.
Right, because that's a large percentage of our workforce.
Right.
And so their ratio is above a 1, and so that's a major effect on the average. Right, I see what you're saying now, thank you. You said you wanted to talk with the district clerk. Did you want me to have a seat
Yes, if you don't
over
mind.
here, right? Okay. Be sure I
He
understood
needs
that.
to get back to work. John, come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, pitch till you win.
Whoa, that sounds dangerous. So my request is to change a file clerk to an issuance position. When I came into the office, we had 3 issuance positions, and on paper, we have that now, but one of them is our poppers position that we added in 2017 with the office reorg, and it doesn't have a separate description. Our major court, on the civil and family side, where we're having the capacity added by our judges in October, we're currently at a 5 to 7 day wait to get citations and issuance out, and we should be in the 3 to 5 day range. And it's just because we have 2/3 of what our staff used to be doing, trying to crank out that same amount of work, and we're about to add another judge. So the request is for the difference between a file clerk pay and the civil district clerk 3. What I gave you is kind of a court activity report across our peer courts to just show overall activity, court staffing, number of courts that we serve. The top where you see at the bottom of that section, district courts, as of last October, as of the beginning of this year, those are when you have a fraction of a court, you've got some counties that they share courts across county lines. So like Bell County added a 6-district court, but one of those is split between Bell and Lampasas. So functionally, it's more like 5.5 courts. Then at the bottom section where we're using that number to show clerks per court, you have to add in judges like Judge Minkowski that is wholly servicing McLennan County in the CPS docket, and Judge Arians, which is largely servicing McLennan County, but he does service some smaller surrounding counties. So that's kind of how those numbers are driven. Are there questions I can answer?
Anna, would you come up here, please?
While she's coming up, what is that bottom number, John? Dollars divided by court, what is that? What is
That's how much each county is spending versus how many judges are being served.
per judges, per
Yes.
court?
And that includes associate judges like Judge Minkowski that are appointed by the state. And then I included part on our 8. I included part of Arians and part of Hodges because he's split. And so that brought us up to the whole number of 8 for the numbers I calculated.
Okay.
Anna, did you look at the data too as well?
I have looked at, this is what you emailed me, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So yes, I have looked at the data. I do have questions on it that I do need to get with John on. I have questions about the cases civil issuance is touching and the exact code in our eDoc system that would relate to, because I was able to pull a 5-year data set from eDoc with IT's assistant, Ms. Rodables, was very helpful in that. But because it has special codes per court, I need to get with John just to be sure I'm
Okay.
isolating the correct courts that would be affecting his civil issuance positions, and to get that 5-year trend like I have for the other court requests. I'd like to do the same. I think it's very applicable for John's office, and just be sure I have a reference for his data, and as soon as we can get that together, we can.
Well, in the large way that we haven't had to come to y'all sooner for this is with the pandemic, there were not court sessions happening. There weren't nearly as many citations having to go out. And now that all our courts are active and open and setting trials, we're, I wouldn't say flooded, but we're back to where it was before the pandemic as far as activity.
And the constable's office has been doing that, right?
That's a very small piece of what we're talking about. Anna ran some numbers on that out of the constables, and it's a few a month, somewhere in that range, that we're talking about converting over to my office doing. But the main thing
They said it didn't take hardly any time.
That's right. It's just that what they were doing that we're working towards taking over is sending out the certified mailers for citations when it's requested by certified mail. So we've got a little bit of a programming change to get that implemented, and Lisa Fetch and Mohammed are working on that.
Okay. Questions?
Did your data have more recent information after 2020?
Mine went through 2021 for the calendar year, and so if you look at that middle section of data, what Anna and I are talking about for activity, so you've got initial cases that's pending at the beginning of 2017. The next row is reactivated. So if you have a family case where there's a final divorce decree, but then there's enforcement action in the 4D court where child support's behind, something like that, it gets reactivated. We have to go through the whole rigmarole of sending out citations and notices and all that so that the parties show up. And then you have added new cases over that period of time. That row represents the total number of added new cases. This is system-wide. It's not just civil and family. It's criminal and juvenile as well. Then you have disposed of cases. There's final notifications that have to go out with that. There's placed inactive, which means we've got it. It's still an active case, but it's placed on inactive because they don't expect data. And then so that's your total activity. And then the last number is pending cases. And then I took the thing of dividing it by number of active elected judges. That's what's used for the denominator there. At the bottom where we're doing clerk activity, I'm dividing by total number of judges, including those associate judges. I didn't do that on the case activity there.
So it shouldn't take us long to evaluate this and.
No, as soon as I get those defined courts that are affected, or that affect John's office, because what we're looking at, it's a compiled figure over the past 5 years, and I'd like it to break it up annually to see what it has done each year, if it's increased or decreased, and see where the trend is over the past 5 years. Accounting for a year-to-date figure, I would add on prorated per month.
It's been pretty flat for the activity, just to tell you that, but it's also, we trimmed a position out of this team. When I came into office in 2015, we had 3 people on this team. Right now, we have 2. So you're right, the data's pretty flat, but as the activities increase, we still have the same number of cases. A lot of them were not ignored, but somewhat low activity during the pandemic. Now those are trying to catch back up, and we've got more cases coming in, and we've got more activity than we did.
So the individual that used to be at the DA's office that's in there, what is, he's not a part of this?
His salary, and it's listed, the job description currently is as an issuance member, but in 2017, when we did the office reorg, we designated that as the paupers position. That's been running as such. We just don't have a separate job description for it. And so on paper, it looks like we have 3 issuance people, but functionally, we have that person reviewing all the claims of indigency. And I mean, that position more than pays for itself in dollars that are brought in, because people claim that they're indigent, so they don't have to pay the court costs up front. We get them to play show and tell with their wages, and then if they're above the poverty level, they end up having to pay off the court costs over time.
So is that what he's doing?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And that's been a big help, because he can actually represent the office in that capacity before the judges, versus we've had just a line level employee reviewing it and evaluating it, but then they can't go and argue in court without having Dixon or somebody come in and do that. So we're temporarily getting a little better service there than we normally do. But.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll get that back. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the difference is about $5,000 or $6,000. It's not a big lift. So, thank y'all.
It's a nickel and dime business.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, and, yeah, if any other questions for Anna for right now? Otherwise, Tom Ray's here, he's gonna bring an update on the, going up, Tom.
All right.
Update on the, arsenic issue, or
ARPA?
ARPA.
And arsenic and water and all that good stuff, huh?
Well, we're specifically wanted to bring you an update. We're making some good progress. I think we're about ready to, with the court's approval, to allocate funds for the arsenic impacted systems, followed closely by the other water, wastewater infrastructure projects. I think I've got a PowerPoint that would be helpful so they don't have to listen to me try to explain these slides. But we have met a couple of times. The judge has led meetings with the arsenic impacted systems. So we've talked to all of them a couple of times already. We provided the information in questionnaire forms that we needed back. And so the next slide shows the information that we've gotten back from our arsenic systems. There we go. I'm sorry that's so small, but I'll recap it for you. All of the projects were reported to be completed by 2026, the deadline for ARPA. And I feel like the schedules look good. We'll look at another slide that has more detail on schedule. Then we did get the meters for all of the arsenic impacted systems. Those were verified, certified, if you will, and were the basis for the allocations done of the 4.4 million that was that the court approved for allocation on arsenic projects. There's the estimated percentage of those projects and the estimated dollar amount. It's not really estimated, it is the actual dollar amount that would be allocated to these systems based on the approach that we've discussed and the court has had us move forward with. The next slide, are there any questions before? That's a pretty
Yeah, I've
important.
got one. So what we would do is allocation for FHLM.
Yes, sir.
They would, from there, they would allocate those money that of their members, which is EOL, Water Supply, Axtell, and
Within McLennan County.
yeah, all, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Verifying those water meters, how long did it take you to walk around and count those?
Well,
Did it take a while?
Doesn't
bad.
take that long.
Checking.
They just write a number down and send it to me. But they did sign off on it, so it becomes important that they don't,
Sure.
that they're accurate. This next slide, we need to see they all said they'd be done by 2026, but we need more detail than that. We need some specifics on what they're doing, and that's information that from one of these meetings we asked for, and this is the product of that. So for each of the systems, each of the arsenic impacted systems, we do have a construction schedule that has the major milestones. Okay, I really believe that we need to have some more detail, but at this point, I think in terms of being able, being comfortable with submitting or proceeding with the sub recipient agreement, I believe this level of detail is adequate. So they all meet the 2026 deadline. Riesel, which is looking for alluvium water to dilute, is the one that looks like it's going to take the longest. We'll need to monitor their progress for sure.
And they'll cover Meyer settlement. as
Yes,
well.
sir. Yes, sir.
MS water.
And then on the next slide is kind of a recap, giving you the start dates, finish dates, end dates, estimated, projected, need to be monitored, and the estimated cost of those projects. So you get an idea of how you're helping with your ARPA funding to help those projects in their major, very costly projects that they have in front of them. We had a number of assurances that the court wanted to see. We did receive statements from the engineers. We're waiting on Prairie Hill, which is going to treat the water to remove arsenic. We're waiting on a verification from their engineer, probably from the vendor, that that system is going to reduce arsenic to below the MCL level. So that may be one that we kind of hold until we get that. But the others all said, yes, what we're doing is going to result in compliance with the arsenic MCL. We also ask, has TCEQ reviewed? And we're getting, again, from Prairie Hill, it's been partially reviewed. We need to check in on that, and I'll do that with TCEQ to find out what the status of that is. The others, LTG is providing some more information. We'll check with them. Haley has got an email going out to them to ask where that review is and what the response to that question is. The others, as you can see, will be reviewed later on this year. City of Riesel, that one is going to be a little tricky because you can't, Riesel, the engineer, cannot get an approval from TCEQ until first they identify an area of production to provide the dilution water from the alluvium. So that one we'll have to handle as a special case as well. That third column over has to do with SRF funding. All of these have some sort of state revolving fund monies from the Water Development Board. And all of them, 2 of them have requested urgent need, which is a special case for additional funding or loan forgiveness. We will make sure that the ones that say no there, which would be Prairie Hill, LTG, and Byram, at least the ones in McLennan County, have requested urgent need, which would result in a more favorable, well, it would typically results in loan forgiveness. And the approval for that, we got Riesel and FHLM have had their urgent need requests approved. The others are pending or have not been submitted, but they will be submitted, and at that point would be pending. So we've got some items to tighten up with some of these. The next slide shows this meeting to provide you with an update where we are. I think we're making good progress. We want to receive any comments the court has regarding funding, the amounts, any issues with any of that that you see. We will also need to track these projects, like I said earlier, in terms of schedule, in terms of checking off the boxes that they've done everything they can do to enhance, enhance their funding. Then I think at that point, we are ready to present to the court and have the court approve the funding for the arsenic systems individually and submit. In fact, at this point, we could, if the county has the sub-recipient agreements ready to go, we could go ahead and send those out contingent upon checking off some of the other items that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, let me speak to the
Tom.
methodology used to determine funding. And that will be in the subrecipient agreement, but it's much like when we advance on construction of the zoo that we sold the bonds on. It'll go through a review process that you would look at and sign off on it upon completion of that phase. And then Francis would get that in advance to their, up to their portion that the court has already agreed on. It's got all total up to the 4.4. So, Mike, did you want to say something?
Yes, there's only one of these that should be a sub-recipient agreement, and that would be FLM, because they're receiving it, then they're sending it on down to others. All the other ones will be what we call beneficiary agreements, because we're contracting directly with the agency with the need.
Well, I don't think Prairie Hill is one of those either. Prairie Hill is, that would be direct. They're not under FHLM.
FHLM?
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, they're separate.
That they're separate.
So wouldn't they have to have a subrecipient agreement?
Yeah, if they're under FM, whatever, if some entity is receiving the money to pass down to other entities, then there has to be a subrecipient agreement with the main entity
Yeah.
and us.
So Riesel would need an agreement with Meyer Settlement, MS Water. And then we'd have a subrecipient agreement with Riesel. And then-
Yeah, that may be, because I don't, well, actually, Riesel is 100% liable for the water, the water debt that has been taken out, because it was easier to do it tax-free. So I don't know on them if that would be, but it may be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just the specifics will need to be studied, and then we'll get with our, with the firm that we're using, with BKD, or Forvis is what they're known now, and they'll help us determine, you know, what category they
That's
fit
right, I
in.
left out a spot. We would have to run it through. Well, in this case, actually, LAN is the,
If they're gonna,
Justin, isn't that right? Unless we bring
Judge.
KD on top of it.
Judge, I think we had envisioned Forbes helping, to review those two and to review the different agreements that they've done in the past. And then there may be a future discussion with LAN to help administer those funds more directly with those entities.
Okay, because somebody's got to be kind of on the ground.
Well, LAN definitely could be on the ground. I think we would defer and work with BKD. They're more attuned, if you will, to the regulations and requirements and
Right.
what these agreements need to evidence to the Treasury Department, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
And what's their new name? Not BKD anymore.
Forvis.
What is it?
Forvis, Forvis.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So that's my report.
That's good news, Tom.
Yeah.
I think we're getting close. We need to get with BKD and look at an agreement. And then on our end, we will, we'll get answers to these remaining questions that I identified earlier, so.
Sounds good.
All right.
Any questions for Tom?
Good news, guys.
All right, thank you.
What about the non-arsenic?
I've got those ready to go whenever you're ready, Commissioner. We are sending out, just as we did the arsenic group first as the priority. And in terms of getting the affidavits on the number of meters, we just sent those out to the non-arsenic group, verified all of those. So I need to come back to you and give you a complete rundown on all of those as well. And you can see what the allocation of funding is based on that formula, that approach we discussed several meetings ago. But we can refresh that and go through it again.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do y'all want to pick back up on? The order supper in?
Might as well. Well, I've got these crackers here, I'm good. Yep.
Okay. All right, y'all want to go back and start talking about COLA again, or do you have questions for Lana?
I guess, could we put back up our numbers again?
Of course.
That sheet that we were working off of?
Every day Francis has a good way of wrapping us up, reminding us all of where we've taken her
Yeah.
and her staff during the day. So I'm assuming we'll do that pretty quick and get it.
Yes, but we're here as long as y'all want to be too, so no rush.
I have a question about the big picture. In today's Waco Trib, or was it yesterday's? The zoo.
Yep.
Has got a big ask.
Yep. As you recall, if you got just a minute, it was pretty soon after they started that, when they got their construction consultant, and inflation was hitting hard and fast, and we were it was determined that, they were gonna need about, if they were gonna go over, what amounted to about $2 million each to each entity, the city and the county and the, society. And so, you know, we even talked about how we would fund that, and we have excess money in bonds, and then we bond be sold. But then, I was in a meeting, like the day before the article came out, and learned.
Zoo commission meeting?
Yeah. It was 3.6 million, I believe, per entity over. And so, wow, yeah, huge. So it looks like the total project is gonna cost twice as much, I believe twice as much as 19, almost twice as much as what was originally sold on the bonds, which, you know, going back 2 years when you started estimating. And so, the society said they would pick up their portion if, you know, they fundraise, and they're asking the city and the county to do, 3.6, I believe, apiece. And so, the city is discussing it now, and we'll go to council early in August, I believe. If they know by the middle or late part of August, they can start, have groundbreaking and start, if they know they have the funding to do the education building and vet clinic education building. And then the penguin exhibit could all come in about the same time, be about a year and a half construction time, I think, 2 years. So, yeah, that's
3.6?
Yeah.
That's a chunk.
Yeah, and that, I mean,
So,
where's it coming from?
you mean what caused it?
No, what, I mean, if we're.
Where are we gonna
because that-
come up with
Yeah,
$3.6?
that changes the whole, election. I mean, it was voted on at an amount, and now if, I'm just hopeful that we don't have to increase the tax rate for something like that.
Well, I would say if you're gonna fund something like that, if you choose to do it, you do it in a bond, so it wouldn't be a 1 year out of your cash. It's a long-term deal, just like the base or, that was originally.
But I guess my question to that is too, it's 3.6, and while this is going on, do we see another, well, now it's gone up to this because they didn't get it completed in.
Well,
I think
and
it's
I
the
would,
point you just.
yeah, I would recommend that we have representatives from the zoo to come in and make the presentation that I heard at the commission meeting, I think yesterday morning. And then we would want to know, because it's asked to equally match to if, what the city's gonna do too. So they'll be taken under advisement. But, you know, I guess some questions would be along the lines of, show me exactly what was our design change, and where was the inflation, in what items, in what areas. And because inflation wouldn't have been that much on the project.
Well, they found lead in the soil.
Yeah, there was a.
Where they wanted to put it, yeah. They had to mitigate all that.
And I don't know what that cost is, I don't recall what it was, but
That's 3.6 times 3, so say that's 10.8 million.
Which is almost double what the original.
10.8 million.
So what we sold, 15 million, Bob?
14.4, I think, 14.6, 14.4.
And so it's earned interest through its life already, so of course built up a little bit, but
Yeah.
They've been spending it, you know.
0.1%?
Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, we could be getting in a favorable environment.
Well, you're not feeding a penguin right now. Anyhow, that's, yeah, it's all, wow. Yep. So,
So you were at this zoo commission
I
meeting?
was on Zoom. And
Oh, okay.
yesterday morning, the article was last night, written last night.
I read it. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Choked on it.
the city said, you know, they were there and, mayor said that, you know, they're looking at it and they're take it to their council at some point. But I think,
Well, I guess so. We would probably want to maybe include it in this language for this, our next issue, our next bond issue, or?
well, that's what, on the 2 million, I think the discussion was that we would, that's how we would handle it from standpoint, I think the other fund was a permanent improvement fund, some money, but not that, you know, this is way bigger than that. So I think whatever we do, I would recommend that we do it, as part of, any unspent bond, which I don't think there will be any, Francis, and.
I mean, just with the project on the horizon of the judicial center that, you know, that's,
Yeah, I mean, that.
even though we don't have it specifically allocated as of yet.
Yeah.
And what would this be any type of ARP eligible?
You know, I would think if it falls under like an economic development category in some way, that is not something eligible, but it's definitely something.
Yeah,
I mean, I would
it's
want,
education
dig
too,
into.
because of this.
I would
building.
want BKD to.
Yes, oh, for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
We'll-
we'll
we'll-
look at it.
We'll start that conversation and see if we
Right.
can.
Justin, do you have any comment regarding, would any ARP funds be, appropriate?
For the zoo specifically,
Like when you look at the economic impact.
Education building?
Or the education building, or,
it's probably hard to do, but we can sure visit with Forvis and get their thoughts on it. We submitted them some new questions this morning, so we will just add to that.
okay. And, yeah, so we'll schedule we'll schedule them to come in and talk about, why the cost went up and.
If we have to resort to drastic measures, Commissioner Jones and I are safe because we're too tall to get in the penguin outfits.
So, the process of elimination gets Commissioner Miller and myself. Okay, or everybody to my left.
Yeah, I definitely waddle like a penguin.
Okay, you can tell when it's getting late in the day.
Hey, yeah, getting back to Anna here.
Yeah.
I pulled up the Southeast Information Office Consumer Price Index South Region, June of 2022, okay? And it says that prices in the South were up 1.5% over the month and 9.8% over the past year. So is that the number you're seeing
Yes, sir.
for the 9.8?
For that south region,
And which would be us, wouldn't it?
it would include Texas.
Okay. So
It's
if we're
Texas to Florida.
if we're
that
chiseling
section.
down to us, then it's up 9.8 over this time, at June to June.
Correct. Mhm. The 1% would be May to June of this year. That's what that's
1.5,
referencing.
Yeah, yeah. So almost 10%, 9.8, pushing 10%.
Correct. So just referencing cost of living adjustment, I know I referenced some, what sounds like good ratios related to market, but that is based on 2020 data, not accounting for anything employers have adjusted for between 2021 and now.
So what did you say that would make our comp ratio to be?
So this would just be market comp only,
You talking about overall?
Overall,
would be 1.1
one
for a
point.
9% and a 1.12, so just 0.2 of a decimal for a 10%. With that hope being that come full 2021 data, we'd be closer to a 1 or so, but
I think 9% is
9,
Mm-hmm.
is what you're saying.
Because that gets us at 1.1 for 2020 data. In 21, we knew, so you could, I mean, I'm not gonna speculate on all that.
Well,
It would,
When
it's
do you
just,
get the new data?
it would just be
How
speculation.
soon will you get 2021?
There's no need to.
You're basing everything off 2020.
They usually post it, and when I say they, Texas Workforce is who we reference. They have a Texas Wages site. And that's usually released sometime in the fall.
So it's not until in the fall that we know where we'll fall in there, whether it'll be 1.1, 1.0, 9,
They're gonna be.
0.99 or something.
We start really compiling the data beginning in January, and because it's a title by title comparison that we're doing, and so it takes us a while to compile it, and we start in January. That way we get it to our departments in time to make their decision to have their budget due to Francis in time for May. So that's kind of the timeline goal there.
other questions?
So do we want a consensus?
That's fine.
So, 9% was pitched out there. What's
I agree with it.
Now, the only thing I'm gonna ask on that, because I don't have a problem with that, but is the Jaeger situation, is that a 10% number or a 9% number?
10%,
10?
with other employees at 9.
That's not gonna create a problem come
I asked that question.
October 1st. when-
Sure complicates things.
That's why I was
I asked
asking.
that question hour and a half ago.
So it should reflect 9 and 9. Is that what,
I would be for 9 and 9. That's just my simpleton way of thinking about it. So,
Since it's not that much difference between 9 and 10, and
That
10
okay.
does,
What's 1%?
720.
720?
So,
well,
Well,
that's for all employees.
that's all employees.
That's all
For just
employees.
jailers, it wouldn't be that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to do the 9-10 split only because it actually answers what SO asked for. If it doesn't work, then it won't be that a modified version of their request didn't work. It'll be their request didn't work. And then we can kind of clearly and cleanly go forward with another solution. And that's why, for that reason, I'm for the 9-10 split.
10 on SO and 9 on.
All the other employees. Because we don't do the 10 split, then we're kind of back to that imbalance with juvenile
Well,
and that issue as far
it
as,
was gonna take 7% to make that par.
yeah, to bring them.
Right.
This takes them over,
They're asking, right, so this actually puts them
a little over.
a little over.
Until juvenile gives theirs a COLA.
Until they get
Right,
to
and
1%.
then,
2023 COLA.
that's up to us how to level that.
Yeah.
What
Well,
are they
I'm
talking
gonna go talk to, Judge Cody, about this and kind of get their view on it. I'd like to be in lockstep with them, and
So
I think they would with us.
Someone have a consensus, but let's get that input before we totally,
Okay.
Okay.
you
Y'all all right
agree?
with that? Okay.
no, so we're doing the 9-10 split.
Well, he's gonna talk to Coley and kind of get an idea how they're gonna feel about that. Because if what we're doing is gonna,
Yeah, bringing that,
Yeah, how, Cody.
if it's gonna create a big,
yeah, just bring them even.
It wasn't the same.
Okay.
Mhm.
And if they don't object to that, then I'll come back and talk to them. So,
Oh, I thought we were waiting now to hear what juvenile was gonna say before we made a decision. Is that not right?
well, I think that's what we wanna check and make sure that
I
it's.
gotta go, I need to go book another room, I guess.
Go to an extended stay this time.
Yeah.
okay, and we're scheduled to meet at 9 in the morning.
Yes.
And who all's coming in? What's the,
So, Chris Collins at 9.
okay?
And then 10 o'clock, Elizabeth Thomas, and then possibly, I guess, a representative from the Fire Protection Association. So we always kind of roll those conversations together, emergency management, fire protection. At 10:30, Bill Vance with the McLennan Community Investment Fund. So that's one of our outside entities
Right.
that made a
Oh,
request.
Bill Vance? Okay.
Bill Vance, he just wasn't able to attend on Tuesday.
Right.
And then we'll just start, again, just cleaning up, reviewing, getting a consensus. Oh, and then IT, we originally had planned on coming back to IT assessments today, but knew that we needed to have these other conversations first, so that as well, we can fit in.
Who, what? I missed what?
IT.
Oh, okay, yeah,
They
we
have
still
their
have IT.
assessment list.
Okay.
Okay, I just was reminded, if we want to take action on the jailer deal, we have to do it today, or we have to wait till next Tuesday.
Say it again, Judge, I'm sorry.
If we have, because it's an agenda item, it's on the existing agenda, and not on the agenda for the next 2 days, we need to make the call on that today, or it'll have to wait till next Tuesday.
And I don't think that's really what you're gonna talk to Judge Coley about.
It's not.
That's a separate matter, right? What, so we can take action on that today. It's the 10 or the 9, and that's,
Or the 10 and the 9. I mean,
we're not gonna decide on a COLA
Yeah, we don't
today,
do COLA.
right? Because we gotta talk to Judge Coley and them about that. But we,
Then what are we taking action on?
So if you need to take
Whether or
action,
not to do a
current year.
10% increase now or a 9% increase.
So you're actually going back to a different item on the agenda.
yeah.
and this is this budget year. This
This
isn't,
is the
this has nothing to do with 2023. This
Oh,
will be,
we're talking about right now for
right.
jailers.
What are we gonna
Strictly
increase?
for jailers.
Right.
And Alan and I were talking, I know
Is
they
that
needed.
right, Dustin?
Right, this is item E3B2, authorizations regarding new hire incentive program for jailers and base pay increases for jailers and jail corporals.
Okay,
So that motion would need to be specific to if the incentive program's not being considered, the motion would just need to be tailored for the pay increases for the jailers and jail corporals.
okay.
And how would that motion sound?
Well, I think you should add an effective date, and so the first day of the upcoming pay period is Sunday, June the 24th?
Yeah,
Yes, the 24th.
Okay, so that's the first day of this upcoming pay period. That
Right.
would,
Does Dustin or Mike want to phrase that correctly then? And do we need also, in addition to that, an amendment to the budget for the increase or anything, or how's that?
So
worded?
the line items, the full-time employee line items in the jail and the Jack Harwell Center should be able to accommodate those changes for the rest of the year.
so just
So
be
you just come
transparent.
back.
You're in, there may be just slight changes, budget amendments that are needed, but right now we
Yeah,
should be.
okay. All right. Dustin, pitch out a appropriate motion.
Okay, and are y'all looking at the 10%?
Yes.
Yes.
I think then we could do, it would be a motion to approve a 10% increase to the base pay for jailers and jail corporals beginning on the July 24th pay period. Francis and Anna, that sound okay?
That sounds correct.
All right, so what's the,
I'd make a motion to approve the, as stated by Dustin.
is there a second?
Second?
That motion second, any other discussion? Call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
Aye,
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
pass, thank you. All right, there you go, thank you. So tomorrow, between these, we can talk again. Hopefully I can get a hold of Judge Coley this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Get that ironed out. All right, Francis, you want,
So, I mean, if y'all want to continue to have some, if there's any other
What else
personnel
do you have?
discussions.
We have, after the jail consideration, I wanted to circle back to the personnel requests, the individual request. We can do that now, or we can, Francis said we have a window tomorrow afternoon.
Well,
I think there's a consensus.
well, go ahead and say what you fixed to say.
I mean, Commissioner Smith and I both agree that none of these, there's a consensus of two.
Freeze the personnel, current fund, current level, current year level.
Take that out.
Would that include salary increases, requests, and adds to staff?
Yes.
I believe so.
Do a little scalpel approach, but I'm technically, I'm 95% with you. Remember I said yesterday that since last year, we held people to 8% of comp ratio. So I'm not in favor of taking positions past the 0.8% comp ratio. But I do know there are some requests that we have that are department restructuring by department heads for the first time. So do we want to allow them to do that now? That would be like health services and elections. Instead of it being a budget item in '23, do we want to look at, because I know elections might be budget neutral when he finishes, but we've always let department heads restructure going in, and this is the first time I know those two departments have done it. So just flat out increases if it takes a position past the 0.8 comp that we held people to last year. I'm not inclined to be in favor, but I am in favor that case-by-case basis, looking at those restructuring that those departments are doing for the first time since we have a little wiggle room.
And that is, those would be the only two departments on the list that can fall into that category. It's a new department head that's taken that year or more to evaluate their department and what they need, and have decided on a structure with HR's assistance.
We've already seen health services, so haven't we?
They're on the list now. She has probably presented.
Presented it, but we didn't do any action on it. I think she may
No,
have
yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
it in
yeah.
her department.
But I mean, we don't need to hear from her again, I guess what
Report.
I'm saying.
And that's just my part of the consensus.
If it's, doesn't affect the budget in any way, I'm fine with it. But if there are budget effects, then,
And then quick question on that, because I'm not too
and
far
then,
away.
and then HR, whatever HR recommends.
Being with you, and, okay, because that, you and John need to get together, because obviously that was something new today. And you're gonna get with him and figure out whether,
There are other offices that are requesting a reclassification. So if after our assessment, we would recommend, yes, it looks like there's a need, would that apply to the other offices that don't fall into this health services election category? Would you consider their request for reclassifications as well?
If it takes them past a 0.8 comp ratio, since that's what we held departments to last year, I'm inclined not to do it. It's kind of unfair. It's kind of like, your request is really based on what year you get it in. You know, 1 year, it could be they're taking everybody at 0.75. 1 year, they're taking people at 1.3 or something like that.
Right.
So if we held them to 0.8 comp ratio last year, that's my approach to any of those pay increases. The only thing I'm looking at are restructuring of departments for the first time by that department head.
Okay.
That would be budget neutral, preferably.
Anna, do you see anything that concerns you about these discussions?
No, I don't see any immediate concern. There's one just particular parity position with a JP clerk request, but where all the other JP clerks have a particular budget item, and this one in precinct 1 does not meet that same salary as the other precincts. So outside of that one, I don't see any major issues with that approach of.
And your recommendation on that one is to grant that that-
Right, just because that's what the other
Yeah, and
precinct
that's where
clerks.
one thing that we've been trying to get back to is kind of, if they're doing, you know, same, if the description's the same and, you know, volume and all those kind of things, we've been trying to keep those in balance because we know how they show up and bite us, and especially if they put us at any kind of risk by not,
Right.
you know, fairness. You know.
And there may be positions of same title and function within the same office that have different salaries, but that came about by the decision of that official and their requests throughout the years. But when it's the same title and function in one precinct compared to another office altogether, that's where we kind of would recommend that they line up or sync up. But outside of that, so what you're proposing, Commissioner, is, I guess, any reclassification request for a department who isn't a new department head or new official, we just not address those this year.
If it took the comp ratio over that 0.8.
So the comp ratio is affected by what pay grade it is in.
So that's gonna cause, if the pay grade,
You could move it to another pay grade, it'd still be a .8, it could theoretically still be a .8.
We have, I believe,
Saying.
we could approve the reclassification, it would lower the ratio, but I don't think it would lower a ratio below a 0.8. So it would still be in line. So there, you could either, you have more than one option. You could approve the pay grade change with no salary adjustment. You can approve the pay grade change with the recommended salary adjustment, or not approve it either. Are the options.
Well, how's that going to affect it down the line, though, if you don't approve a salary adjustment? I mean, don't they run the risk of coming back later and saying, hey, there's some inequities here again?
It could creep back up as a possible outlier in the future that we would have to highlight, saying, hey, this is a lower ratio for its own pay grade.
But based off of a 9% COLA, that should pretty well keep.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be backing up, you wouldn't think,
You would
with
think,
regards to the comp ratios.
The COLA is applied to our pay grade minimum and maximum. So they would move together. Whatever
That
this.
shouldn't change anything. Shouldn't change any of the comp ratios, right?
Pay grade,
Pay grade rate, yeah.
we do have a ratio comparing
And I'm gonna ask this question,
positions in the same
and
pay
I don't
grade.
know who these departments are, okay? I don't know. So I'm not being biased toward any one department. In your mind, are these changes being made to circumvent, being able to get additional salary for some employees? Or is it truly a job function change? Because if it's the first, then the 9% takes care of it. Did I ask that right?
You did, and I was looking at.
My
Will, so
head
I
nod
thought
was a
yes,
nod of
yes.
understanding, not an answer.
It's a double yes.
My head nod was I'm understanding your question, not a, yes, that's exactly what's happening kind of
Right.
thing.
I'm
But
just saying if it's the former, not the latter, then the 9%, as Commissioner said, should take care of that problem, make somebody happy, you know.
I would think that's a substantial COLA. And most of the requests on here, I really would like to see then what does that COLA do for those positions before we do increases like that, because that's a substantial COLA,
Yes, it is.
9%.
Yes. I can do that, and then to answer your question, we do vet the functions that are being claimed, that are new or that have changed. We ask in-depth questions about, where were these functions before, or are they
Who was
completely
doing them
new?
before?
Right, or are they new functions? What percentage of time is being spent on these functions? And trying to get as much descriptors as we can get. I'm sure I've annoyed enough officials that they would just be watching this and saying, yes, she's asked us these questions. So we do have that process in place. Could that be the end goal and not necessarily a change in function? There's always that possibility, but we do our best to try to filter that.
Would we want to look at, would we want to take a little bit of time? I mean, the thing about doing blanket things, you say, we're not gonna do this or this. Sometimes we don't realize until we go over, we need to do, in my opinion, we need to do the work of going down and looking at these things. We can still come up with the same region, but are we leaving something out? Are we leaving somebody out? Are we overdoing something?
Right.
I mean, what do y'all think? I just don't like making blanket statements that we're gonna do this. And unless y'all understand exactly what the consequences are.
I understand what you're saying. I did look at, now all I have seen is that 2-page report. If there are more positions on here, I don't have those, but I
So
did.
positions that wouldn't be included on here are like,
Is that
the
all
request
inclusive?
from the district clerk, and then the 2 ads recently for courthouse security would
Okay.
not be on there.
But
The
everything
courthouse
else is all-
security, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Courthouse security is those, the 2 that be assigned to the new court, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, we wouldn't eliminate those, right? We gotta have those, right? I mean,
Did you all receive that memo from,
Captain Eubank?
yes, okay. We printed it as well today, in case.
Don't they have, don't they have spots that they can move over? From,
Got 56.
56, 58.
well, I think we need to ask that question then to them. Captain Eubank sent a,
yeah, right.
Yeah, because right now they all empty, if they needed them later.
And then just to address exactly your point about what can happen when you do a blanket, I actually, Ms. Holly is correcting me because I misspoke. That parity issue I pointed out, it wasn't a JP office, it was a constable
Constable
office.
Precinct 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
You know, if we need to take the time to vet these, you know, and we're not talking about an arm and a leg for people coming in.
I just want to say, I looked through here.
Yeah, and
I looked through,
I've looked at that.
your whole report, and that's when, and I said, like I said, that's for me, I'm not making a court policy. When I looked through this list, and then I assessed the COLA on top of it, with the exception of that salary, and I don't know how she got that low, but sometimes they get requests, they say, can I have a part-time, or if you make it a full-time, they just need to be here. Then we come back and they say, hey, but everybody else is making that a couple of years later. And I think that's what happened to this one that is what happened to this one. But fair is still fair and parity, and people need to make a fair wage. But when I looked at it, that's why I had those other conversations with those departments. I'm for the restructuring, but I'm not for reclasses that are taking people past 0.8%. With the exception of the parity increase, because this person is barely at $15 an hour. It is really low.
Yes, ma'am. I think that makes sense.
Right? But I didn't make that statement because I hadn't seen the
I know,
report.
I understand.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't disagree with the judge if we need to take the time to vet.
I think it's just a certain amount of respect to the requester.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And it shouldn't take long to do it, and we're gonna have some people come in tomorrow, but there's gonna be some spots we can talk. The other thing, in fact, y'all, let's remind ourselves what we want to discuss, and one of them was retirees. What are other things we wanna talk about? Just so we don't forget.
One of the things that I think I asked was if y'all would have the opportunity to look at those vacant positions that have been open for X number of years or whatever, and recommend that we pull them off. I know we've already done that with the jail, but have we done it with the other?
So I ran some numbers this morning for that, and it's different than what I've provided. took Commissioner Jones' suggestion, which is a really good way to look at it, which is an average actual staff body count over the past 3 years. And then subtracted that from actual position count to get, on average, this is the amount of vacancies they've had across any position number. It's broken down by department, so it's not gonna isolate it by actual position title. And then I only went 3 years back because in 2019, we had all that, the ads to the jail. And so we have,
Can you share that?
yes, I can share it. Let me see. I think I need a
You
relaunch.
said you're sure of that, I'm sorry. I think she is.
I can email it to everybody, and that way everybody has time to take a look and go through it.
I only asked that question because I noticed Judge packing up over there.
And that's why I'm.
Can you give us a preview? Was it enough for us to look at?
We're gonna hold him in here a while.
Yeah, there are several, okay? All right, that's my first, and then the second was budgets, actual budgets over the past, or what it looks like moving forward. And are there any areas that could be pared back that are more realistic
Yes,
looking?
and we've done that. We've already done,
That's already figured into what you
Yes.
put up there?
Yes. And
Okay.
it's a process that, and if you ever want to see, we have report upon report pulled, and we can pull anything ever you want to look at, if you want to look at where departments lie at the end of the year or certain categories. And it's something that will continue each year. So, we can continue to track those trends and
Build us a
see.
paper
and,
trail.
I don't think of anything else we need to
Okay.
discuss.
Yeah, send it to us, that's fine, and I don't know if you want to flash it up there or wait, that's up to everybody else.
I got logged out of my Zoom meeting. I'm sorry, so I can't share my screen.
Yeah.
Um,
Find y'all the precinct one.
And Commissioner, on that, we haven't got a chance to get to it yet, but there was a packet we passed out yesterday with some operating highlights, and we'll hopefully get that out tomorrow.
I
But
thought we'd
through
get it done
that-
today, I threw that one away yet. No, I'm sure.
We'll give reprint it for you.
I didn't.
But through that, you can see, if you look at the department, you can see departments that there was a drastic decrease. And so those are ones that we worked with them to
Okay.
really try to pare down those areas.
okay.
So.
Very good,
but we can
thank you,
discuss
thank
as
you.
long as you want.
I think that was important to do.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. You said the jail term.
This will also give me time to assess the more recent requests that came before the court as well.
Okay, and then just to be sure everybody's, I think yesterday we made a decision on the entities that came requesting funding, the outside entities, that we would stick with last year's commitment this year.
Yes.
So,
This time.
okay. The only other thing is consideration on the open positions at the jail. I think there's 53 or 6 or.
It said 58 as of yesterday.
58.
Yeah.
58.
That we take a number of those, 10 or 15 or something like that, and just pull them and put a dollar placeholder. We'll fund them. It will help us on, if we need the money. I mean,
It's a good
in
point.
the budget, we can
point.
pull those down, and then we hope they fill all the positions and more. But we'll have a dollar placeholder just as a reminder or optic that, there's money there. But if it goes over that, we're still able to fund more positions than that if we need them.
And the only thing I'd follow up to that, Francis, if you guys would get with them and make sure they know that. So if, I don't want them to think they're there and then they don't adjust their overtime
And that's.
budget.
Yes.
Because they think they're gonna be able to pull from over here to here, so we need to see. We don't wanna
Yeah.
put 20 positions at a dollar placeholder and then they come up and go, well, now we don't have the money for the overtime that so I just wanna make sure we're not setting up
Yes.
a crisis at some point.
Yes, and that's been on our mind, so we'll solidify that with them before and let y'all know.
Did we run a number to see what it will look like to give retirees some type of COLA?
Yes, and if y'all have time, we can look at that now, or we
Okay.
can look at that tomorrow, whichever. Yes, just like Mark.
I don't want to spend a lot of money, but
I think
I do-
everybody's committed to doing something. though. I
Yeah.
haven't talked to anybody that doesn't feel the obligation.
So I know we just thrown out some rough numbers, the day before yesterday, so we got all of these, locked in and wanted to see what it looked like. So I know this is a lot to look at first, but the first column's current plan. So you make no changes, no retiree, COLA, your 2023 rate, will be 13.27%, starting January 1st, 2023. So, based on the COLA that you've been looking at, I think because we've been discussing it, I plugged in at 11%. You're in the blue, that'll show you what your retirement cost would be. Do you mind highlighting that so I can yeah, perfect. Okay. So then if you move across, if you changed your plan by giving a 1% COLA, that next section, you can see that your rate would go up to 13.54%. And so that would bring your cost of retirement to that 9.459 million. And then you'll see the difference, 188,000. So that is if you paid that out over 15 years. And then as you go down, you can see how your rate will change over the next 15 years compared to if you did not give that COLA. What I did here, because this would be sorry, it's echoing. This would be refigured TCDRS would, of course, refigure these every year based on the COLA that's actually given. But I went ahead and just put in a 3% COLA going forward because that is how they calculate their estimates. So you can see that increased cost for the next 15 years. And then, of course, just moving over 1%, 2%, 3%. If you look at line 9, you can see that if you did a 1% and you put in a lump sum amount of 1.8 million, that COLA would be paid off. Your rates would not be adjusted going forward. There would be no increased cost for the next 15 years for that. And then you'll see it, of course, again, just doubling, tripling almost for 1%, 2%, 3%. We can plug in any number you're looking at there, but we just did that just to at least start from there.
Is that on our budget?
It's in the drive. If you open the 2023 budget drive,
What will
you'll
it be
see TCDRS scenarios.
Okay.
If you ever can't find something or want, just holler at us and we can print it, email it, whatever you would need.
And you said in 2020, we gave a 2%?
2%.
And we paid it out, we did the payout.
Yes, so
Okay.
it affected our rate for,
15 years? Or however.
I would be open to do that same thing this year.
and I wanted to say, I know when you look at the lump sum payoff and, I think financially that is, of course, the best way to go. And Ralph Wallace will always try to say, pay it off now, don't let it affect your rate. But, even if it's something you did like that and it shows affecting your rate, there's no reason that in a future year, you can't make a lump sum payment to help that. So, and so it's something that, it's not like we're locked into this, no payoff early. You always have that option to make a lump sum payment. And, like he spoke on, you can also always pay a higher rate than they suggest. Also a way that, you can, plan for future years, so. And I pulled there's another tab, if y'all want to look at it, it's changing the deposit rate to 7%. Again, I just pulled that because it was, thrown out and that question was asked, so, you can see there, it's a pretty substantial cost. If you, it would increase by almost 1.2 million for fiscal year 23, just for that 1 year alone.
And then that also affects our COLA ends up only being 1% less.
Right.
In pockets.
I keep hearing that. I don't know if I agree with it. I know what we're saying is they're not getting it in their pocket, but they get it in a savings. It's not like we take it back.
Well, but to Commissioner Jones's point as well, they have the opportunity to invest that money just the same as they expect when we take it out of their check and send it off that it's invested towards retirement.
That's true.
They can use deferred comp to replace that.
That
Which
is
is,
true.
quite honestly, it's not a bad idea, because it gives you some exposure
No,
to.
what I'm saying is, but it's not like I take your 1% and I give it to the judge. I take your 1% and I put it in a savings for you. So it's not that we're giving them a percentage less on the COLA, because I got that out last year. And I went, no, you gotta look at it as, instead of me giving you the whole, I gave you 9%, then I also put this percent in a savings for you for later. And older tenured employees, they like the additional savings. In fact, I've had some employees ask, are y'all gonna increase the deposit rate?
And I have too,
I
Commissioner.
was just letting you know.
Yes.
But I did get beat up by younger ones.
Yeah.
Who took that percent away? I said, no, I didn't.
I guess I'm a younger one because I was like, where'd that 1% go?
You are one of the younger ones.
Paying a lot more attention this year to it.
It was reallocated to your other assets in your balance sheet.
Thank you, Judge.
That sounded good.
That's what happens.
You can see the generational gap right there.
Yeah. Well, and that's why many employers help people out by, and not always appreciate it early on. But they're doing something that they've got a little bit of responsibility while people are in that age of really not seeing the full grasp of what happens to kind of take care of them until they come to realization. So it's like raising kids, right?
Yes.
You gotta tell them, no, you
So,
need to eat your,
Commissioner
you need to eat your
You'll thank
spinach.
us later. You'll thank us later.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
If I make it there. If I make it to later, you know? Sorry.
We're counting on you, buddy, all right?
Eat your
Leave her
vegetables.
all depressed and sad today.
Eat your vegetables.
All right, so anything else, Francis?
I mean, no, if that's, we can end it there if you like, and then we'll.
What else
we'll
do
hit
you
it hard
have?
tomorrow. So if there's no other personnel matters that we're ready to talk about today, I mean, it's just going back through some operating and just getting a consensus on some things.
Okay.
I think, we passed out a packet yesterday. I was telling Commissioner Smith, we didn't get to that yet. Hopefully we'll get to tomorrow. But we've just kind of taken like a bird's eye view at the operating part of the general fund and seeing literally what really increased. And I think you'll be surprised at that it's just a few areas. And those being the increase to capital outlay for the elections equipment. And then we increased $1 million in that bridge line for countywide for the large road and bridge projects. But it sounded like today that might be coming down.
Yeah.
And then IT assessments, there was a large increase there.
Right.
And then you have,
We'll talk about that also.
yes, and so you have a scattering of other increases. But, we went through all of those, but we just want to make sure that y'all are all on board still with those. So that's kind of where we need to go next. And then capital outlay, the vehicles that were requested, any other.
I would like to go through capital outlay again,
Definitely,
scrutinize,
yes.
because I think there's some in there that were, there weren't, I don't know if there was a consensus on some.
And we've made decisions that may make us look at some of these other things differently now, going back and looking at them again.
Yeah.
And as it's just a handful of departments that are on that capital outlay list, but quite a few items. But we heard from all of them. But again, like Commissioner Jones said, not really a consensus. There's no consensus given. It was just kind of hearing them
I
out.
didn't hear anybody say, I'm okay with that.
No,
It was,
no.
It was,
No, we
it
did
was
not.
all just,
Information.
yeah.
Sizing it up.
Yes. So
And I think that we really have to scrutinize our fleet as much as possible, especially with the price of these vehicles and the price of fuel and things like that.
Electric.
No, can't get there.
Let's see, you can knock me over if Will said, sure, I'd fall out of my chair.
We'd have, if we were to go all electric, we'd need to build our own,
Grid.
nuclear plant
Nuclear
over
plant.
here on the river.
Yeah.
So,
Go electric.
I'm all right with
but like, there's there's a couple things in here I think we need to look at, and if it increases our fleet, then we don't need to have them in there. If it increases our fog,
Yeah.
But you will.
And insurance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at my budget again. I'm gonna try to make it budget neutral. Maybe we could ask other departments to do the same. And just, not that, not a mandatory thing, just ask people to do a second look. I'm just gonna take a second look at it.
Good. Our budget's so much fog-driven. It's such an unknown, the fog part of our budget.
Oh, yeah, fuel. Fuel and parts.
Yep.
Parts are-
Back to the mule and the plow.
Okay.
May get to
That did
that.
it.
we're done.
We were getting foggy here. Okay,
Hit the hammer, Judge.
I will.
Get through.
Okay.
Thank you all very much, and tomorrow will be a different posting, so we'll adjourn this meeting and see y'all at 9 in the morning. Thank you.